Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fanfiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
After the lunch break, Naruto found a way to do the triangle, albeit with both hands. One of his clones decided to do it another way, and when it popped, Naruto got it down as well. Shaping all angles in the most uneven triangle made out of pure dirt, Naruto completed the chakra control exercise, which he was honestly proud of. His teacher Ebisu congratulated him on a job well done, but said it wasn't enough for now. He decided to tell Naruto to try it again, this time with one hand, to which annoyed Naruto, but he didn't voice his opinion. Instead he let it go, and focused on the task again. That earned him an earnest pat on his shoulder, as Ebisu-sensei watched his progress at a distance. Much to Naruto's credit, he found the solution the task Ebisu gave him with making the triangle one-handed a day and a half. It was hard definitely, but he managed to shape his chakra in 3 angles. The advice his teacher gave him was somewhat helpful. Naruto, admittedly, had a problem when it came to thinking too hard on the exercise. Instead of simply trying it, he was too busy thinking he had to do it fast. Ebisu-sensei asked him to simply imagine a triangle being made over and over. He also asked Naruto to stop thinking about how fast to shape the chakra as well. This is simply you learning how to shape it right now. If anything, we shall work on the speed another time. Just do it, not think about how to do it. After a while after the advice, he gotten it down, and he was relieved. Then Sensei decided to make it more specific, and asked him to make a triangle with all equal angles. It took another few minutes to get it down, but he got it, and he thought honestly he was ready to move on to something else much more interesting. Ebisu agreed, and just when Naruto thought he was out of the shape-making department, Ebisu grabbed some dirt of his own. Here's your next task. Ebisu concentrated on his right palm, and shaped the dirt instantaneously into a rectangle. You're going to shape it this time to a rectangle. It shouldn't be hard now that you know how to make angles. Naruto muffled any sort of screams of protest, and nodded jadedly, working on the task. Interestingly enough, like Sensei said, Naruto gotten it, relatively fast. In a few minutes, using the same strategy as before, he gotten the square exercise down quickly. Perfect, Ebisu smiled. You are starting to get it. Is there more to this than making basic shapes? Naruto asked, trying not to voice his frustration. Ebisu could sense it however. Patience, Naruto-kun. There is much more to this technique than shaping, like making it larger or smaller, but that's a task for another day. Preferably after the Chunin Exams. The techniques I will show you does not have to do with size changing. Now, cut the link between the chakra shaping the dirt, and return it back to how had it before when you first gathered the dirt. Naruto paused, and concentrated again, this time slowly bringing the dirt down and making it shapeless. What's next? Make a perfect square. It's like making the perfect triangle. Work slowly, and imagine it. Naruto nodded, and closed his eyes in thought, focusing on the imagine of a triangle, finding his chakra working for himself, and creating the shape in another minute. Ebisu smiled again, excellent. Alright. We're going to finally do some much more complicated. I warn you, this will take a little longer. Instead of making a triangle or square, or any shape with angles, I want you to make a perfect circle. Shouldn't be that bad. Ebisu shrugged. A lopsided grin appeared on his face. I warned you. And his teacher did. For a little while, it truly did stump him. Unlike the specific angles the triangle and square asked for, a circle was much different, lacking any sort of thing like that. At first, Naruto unconsciously tried shaping in one direction, but it got something akin to a normal straight angle, and failed. He wanted to ask his teacher for advice, but he stopped and decided to not rely on the man and figure it out himself. Just like the triangle and square, he tried to think what made a circle in his head, letting the dirt sit in his hand. A circle lacked angles and lines, unlike a triangle or square. So in order to do it, he couldn't make it straight. I have to turn my chakra. It was the conclusion he came to. Eyes still closed, and making sure to focus hard on this one, he raised one palm over the dirt, fed the chakra, and started circling his hand over the dirt, moving slowly. Anchoring his chakra in his other hand where he held the dirt in to keep it all together, he decided to use his left hand to turn the dirt. He wasn't adept at using it in the same palm he held the dirt in, so he tried with two hands. His chakra responded, and moved as he circled his hand over the soil. In the middle of it all, he opened his eyes, and saw his work, and smiled a little at it. Unfortunately, even as slowly as he went, he ended up not making the circle shape perfect, and the ending part of chakra-saturated dirt didn't connect with the beginning part, creating some sort of weird, incomplete shape. Still, Ebisu looked pleased, beaming in his direction and clapping his hands. Very good. Yes, you are starting to get it. Yes, yes. Very good indeed. Naruto looked vaguely amused, smiling slightly. Even if I failed? Ebisu waved at him offhandedly. Minor details. This is an admittedly difficult task I'm giving you. You know the basics of utilizing your earth chakra, and the basics of shape transformation. You now know how to shape your earth chakra certain ways, and this now will help you learn some ninjutsu. You're quite not on the level yet to form weaponry out of your element yet, but you're getting there. So, wait, are you going to show me how to change the properties of dirt to stone? Yes. Ebisu nodded. It's simply, really. To harden it to stone, after shaping whatever you want, simply add more chakra and compress it tightly together. If you want to turn stone to soil, you use your chakra, spread it around to loosen the stone, and turn it into soil. I suppose it's easier for you to see it, instead of me telling you. Naruto nodded at that. Yes, please. Explanations only went so far with him, the blonde didn't learn like that. He had to see it performed, and actually do it in order to learn it. Theory was never his strong suit. Ebisu grunted in affirmation, gathered dirt into his hand, and started shaping the soil into a round orb. Then he compacted the earthen material and created a hard rock. Then, he messed with the object in his hands again, and it turned softer and softer until it became a round dirt ball again. To compress your chakra, imagine taking all of your chakra, and squeeze it together, like you're squeezing something tightly. Try it. You can make any shape you please. Naruto did, dropping the weird shape in his hand, turning the dirt lumpy again, and made a shape. The shape he chose for his task was a triangle, as he edged the soil with his chakra, and created the triangle. Then, he attempted to pack his chakra tightly together, but it was easier said than done and found his chakra not exactly responding to his wishes. After another half hour, it was around 4, and Ebisu told him to stop, and take a short 15-minute break. Naruto sighed, and went towards a spot near his teacher under a shade tree, wiping some sweat off his brow. Naruto brought forth a green canteen of water. The water was kind of warm, but Naruto drank up the liquid all the same, and felt some of annoyance for today wash away. A bit more sweeping of the sweat off his forehead, and the blonde-haired Uzumaki felt a little better. Naruto found no newer progress, to which irritated him. However, he promised himself to not complain so much about it, and just kept it to himself. Ebisu patted him on the shoulder. You are doing an excellent job so far, Naruto. You have gotten down quite a bit in these last few days. I am sure you will learn this by the end of this month of training. Naruto appreciated the encouraging words, smiling at the Jonin standing at his side under the tree. Thanks, sensei. Just a little frustrated, is all. I'll definitely get this down. Very good. Alright, the next thing we will do is do something you will find a little more interesting. Although it's not ninjutsu. Naruto slightly deflated. The thought of getting to something other than making shapes with dirt was exciting, and he first thought it would be something practical, like ninjutsu. It seems like he was wrong. We shall get to it soon. Instead of ninjutsu, I will teach you how to actively use your element in close quarters combat, increasing your strength temporarily. Eh? What? The boy questioned, much interested again in what his teacher would be teaching him next. Chakra flow. This is the basics of chakra flow. Basically, this is a type of exercise that requires a substantial amount of chakra control. You are flowing chakra through certain objects like weaponry or ordinary objects. Ebisu grabbed out a kunai out his back pouch and channeled chakra through the metal. An aura cloaked the metal in a visible blue. Chakra flow non-elemental can last in objects for a very long time. However, it can get more complicated when adding an element into it due to the volatility of all elements. Ebisu then paused again, before Naruto watched the aura's blue turn red and flaming. Naruto whistled, finding the process fascinating. That's so cool, Databayo. Ebisu nodded. However, remember, this is all about controlling your chakra. If you cannot control it, you can end up doing damage to yourself, and that is never a good thing. An element as volatile as fire can end up you getting burned if you do something wrong. Each element can do some sort of harm to you or the object you are flowing chakra inside of. So what does Earth do if you have no control? I will show you. Ebisu stopped his fire chakra flow technique and returned his hands to a normal state. Grabbing the kunai with his left hand, Ebisu activated his chakra again, converted it to earth release chakra, and the kunai had an aura of particles of earth surrounding the metal blade. This is the correct version of the technique of the right amount of chakra flowing through an object. However, the wrong amount. Ebisu then did something to make the metal blade darken until it almost became black, and Ebisu looked a little strained, like it became much harder to keep the weapon up in one hand. The item has become significantly heavier and much more denser, much like a rock. For a weapon, unless this is your intention, never do what I have done. Ebisu then flexed his hand and dropped the flow of chakra, turning the weapon back. Naruto watched it and saw big dents now in the metal, dents that were not there before. What happened? Too much earth chakra warped the metal into this state. The wrong amount of chakra will break the weapon and make it useless. Some weapons are more suited to channel this chakra, admittedly, but they too will strain under the force of your chakra if you use too much. And too little won't wield the results you want, right? Too little, and the chakra won't stand for a few seconds before dissipating. Ebisu responded, dropping the useless kunai in his hand to the ground. Thus, you must find enough to place in the item. Naturally, the size matters in this case. Small item requires a small amount chakra, and a large item demands a large amount of chakra. All of this is about chakra control, eh? Of course. You will find many of these exercises even increase your control. All this is to make you feel your chakra better. Have you not felt like it was easier to mold your chakra these days for any technique outside this exercises? Take a second and use a ninjutsu now. Use a kawarimi on this kunai I have on the floor. Ebisu cleared the way so Naruto could have plenty of space to perform the technique Ebisu asked him to use. Naruto stared at his item intensely and thought back to the amount of chakra he usually used to perform the kawarimi. Clapping his hands, Naruto generated that chakra in his body, and then started contorting his fingers into hand seals shape. Tiger to boar, then boar to ox, then ox to dog, and finally finishing off with snake. Naruto succeeded in using the technique, and shifted places with the kunai. The kunai bounced for a second before dropping down uselessly, and Naruto found he had used quite a bit of his chakra. It wasn't the most huge amount, but he felt it. Days of working with the smallest amount of chakra he could use made him more sensitive to it. How did it feel? Ebisu asked the teenage. I felt like I used a lot of chakra than I intended to. Ebisu nodded, as he was confirming something. All right. Now, I want you to try it again. This time, use the most minuscule amount of chakra you can muster on it. Naruto nodded, again looking over to the discarded kunai, and generated his chakra again with a soundless clap, before performing the necessary seals again. He tried his best to generate the absolute smallest amount of chakra he possibly could, and performed the kawarimi no jutsu again. He shifted places with the kunai, which dropped down to the ground in its original place, where Ebisu dropped it 2 minutes ago. This time, his chakra felt like it hadn't depleted at all. Almost like it was a small, not easily noticeable tug of his chakra. It was many times weaker than what he used regularly when performing the Kawarimi on objects, people, or his clones. Yet, he had done it. It almost felt amazing, like he was waking up for the first time, or he learned something crucial in his life. He was starting to understand why these damnable chakra control exercises held merit. The more chakra he could use in battle or in a fight at his disposal, the better it was. No more wasting so much chakra using techniques. That was why the Kage Bunshin was so good for him. Instead of worrying chakra control, the clone technique automatic splitting of his chakra evenly helped him save chakra. While Kakashi-sensei had already said to him that his reserve of chakra was massive, even larger than the Sandaime Hokage himself. However, that didn't mean it was infinite, and Naruto had felt his chakra amount get quite low before. Not like he's ever been in a fight when he had to worry about that, but it still took quite a few days for him to retain back that lost portion of his chakra again. It felt amazing. Ebisu smiled, watching Naruto's eyes widen from his space across the training grounds. Noticed something interesting? That didn't feel like it cost so much anymore. Yes. Your control of your chakra has become much better. You now know how to not only shape and make your chakra move in ways you want it to move, you also know how much chakra to use in some of your techniques. I believe you can use even less chakra than what you used, due to how huge your chakra amount is, and how large your chakra pools are. Thus, Naruto figured, he was perfect for using the art of ninjutsu, which made Naruto absolutely giddy. He got this all down in a few weeks. In a few weeks. Who knows what he could do now? The possibilities were endless. This is awesome, sensei. I feel great. I'm ready for anything you throw at me. I can do it. I have little doubt whatever task I give you, you will not try your hardest in. Naruto's enthusiasm rubbed off on Ebisu a large amount. We will do the chakra flow exercise. I shall give you a bit of kunai and shuriken to experiment on. Originally, this was my final exercise for you, but I thought of something much more difficult for you when it comes to making shapes. So, after this, more shaping exercises, and practicing compressing and expanding your chakra, we shall finally get to ninjutsu. Right. Naruto nodded, accepting the 3 kunai Ebisu gave him. Putting down 2 of the kunai, Naruto then summoned 3 shadow clones, without hand seals, a new crowning achievement Naruto was proud of recently discovering. In doing this, the 1 kunai in Naruto's hand became 3 for 3 blonde boys to work on, making a total of 5. The awesome effect of the Kage Bunshin was whatever the user had on their person was whatever the clones had as well. More tools could be made, and the perfect thing was, each of the clones had their own weaponry to work with. Naruto grinned in excitement. There was no stopping him when he was charged like this. He was definitely going to kick ass in the Chunin exams. Naruto laid down, his body aching, and his muscles weak. His arms were sore, and he felt like he ran a triathlon with his legs. Tomorrow was resting day for him, so that would be good for him. A day to rest his aching muscles. So tomorrow, he would be doing something not pertaining to training. He had made quite a good bit of progress in only 2 weeks, it was all thanks to Ebisu-sensei. After several days of the man actually devoting his time to teach him, Naruto had to admit he was starting to warm up to Ebisu. Someone who he lumped up to be just like everyone else, people who disliked him just because of his bad circumstance, the title sensei for Ebisu was said less mockingly, and more respectfully as he learned from Ebisu. Now, it even wasn't that annoying taking orders from him. The man always was there to teach him, and help him with a technique Naruto had trouble with. Even if Ebisu was only here by Kakashi-sensei's instruction, the man had brought him up to speed about a lot of things. He even taught Naruto more than he ever learned from Kakashi-sensei. It helped also that Ebisu taught him something as cool and useful as his elemental affinity. At first, Naruto wasn't as stellar to hear that his element was earth. He was half expecting either fire release or lightning release to be his affinity. Instead, earth release was his affinity. It wasn't anything he was expecting. When he was first mastering how to use Earth Chakra, he kept thinking one thing: what did Earth release techniques have to offer in terms of strength and usefulness? The answer: a lot. Earth release was by nature an equally offensive nature as it was defensive. According to his teacher Ebisu, Earth release techniques could break the strongest of rock, and also form a powerful shield able to withstand the strongest of elemental and non-elemental techniques. Ergo, it was just as strong as it was durable, and Naruto could get behind that. Naruto liked versatility quite a bit, which is why the Kagebunshin no Jutsu was his favorite. It was just tailored for him. He could make many of clones, and not even break a sweat. Now, he was learning from Ebisu, and that little Kawarimi exercise, he was finally getting why it was better to conserve chakra. His chakra was huge. Sensei stated his chakra pools were extremely larger than his, and of anyone in this entire village. Naruto had chalked that up before as a sign to just simply being able to spam his shadow clones for his heart's content, but it was more than that. Because of his large pools of chakra, he could learn a ton of techniques and utilize them for a long time. Ninjutsu, therefore, was his forte, and he, like how he was doing with the Kagebunshin now, could, and would, abuse the shit out of it. Naruto learned a Jonin-level ninjutsu easily before, so what stopped him from picking up more? Not a damn thing. Ebisu-sensei looked ready to teach him ninjutsu any day now. Perhaps when he got down the true basics of chakra flow? It didn't really seem all that hard. All this time, his teacher was getting Naruto to work diligently on his chakra control, so he wouldn't be wasting a shitload of chakra every time he called upon chakra for a technique, so chakra flow wouldn't take that long to learn. Naruto couldn't help it. He was super giddy. Neji was getting his ass kicked when Naruto sees him in battle, and that ass-kicking extended to any potential opponent in the exams. Count on it. But that wasn't the real reason why the blonde boy was having trouble sleeping. No, another crucial thing, even bigger than the pleasure of knowing the key to kicking Neji's ass, was keeping him awake, thinking about it. Kakashi-sensei's question was again playing in his head. Every few days, he would go to sleep thinking about it, especially on restless nights like this. What is the point of these exams, Naruto? Think about it. He tried to think of the reason to himself, in the days he wasn't trying or in his relaxation time. So far, he hadn't figured it out. Granted, he was busy with other things in his time, and the only time he could think about it was either on days off or when he was restless at night. Since he usually slept like a rock after training, that hadn't been many times when he was restless. So, what was the point of these exams? To become Chunin, right? That was the namesake of the exams. But, was there a secret thing beyond it? How could you become a Chunin if you didn't have a sizable amount of techniques at your disposal? How could you be a Chunin if you didn't have advanced techniques? At first, that's what Naruto thought, that all you had to have. Just beat everyone in your way, and you would be able to become a Chunin, but now that he thought more deeply about it, that didn't make sense. So let's say he beat everyone in the tournament, did that mean him, and maybe the runner-up of the exams, would become a Chunin? That made little to no sense. It was strange to him to think of it in terms of math, but it helped quite a bit with the mystery. Thinking of it mathematically, if that statement above was true about only the winner of the tournament and the runner-up were able to become Chunin, and the tournament only took place twice a year, that meant only 4 Genin-ranked ninja in the entire village were able to gain a Chunin promotion. That didn't make sense. If that was the case, then the village's ninja force would be pathetically small, and Naruto knew for a fact that that was not the case. Konohagakure was known for its extremely huge population, a population that eclipsed all of villages on the continent, to be exact. Konohagakure had a large bulk of capable Genin, Chunin, and Jonin. Naruto couldn't even count how many new faces he's seen around the village. The village itself stretched out for miles. It was huge, even to 13-year-old Naruto Uzumaki. So how could 4 people of the village be chosen to become Chunin of the village? It made no sense at all. So it definitely had to be more than just having the power to kick everyone's butt in the exams. He thought back to what Ebisu-sensei said a time 2 weeks ago as a guideline. Just because you have the fighting skills of a Chunin, doesn't mean you actually deserve becoming a Chunin. Everybody has the potential to become a Chunin in the exams, but that doesn't mean they all can become one. The exams is much more than fighting. In order to become a Chunin, you must act like one, and think like one. Thus, you must know what it is to be Chunin. Sometimes, there's more than one way than surviving a fight. So, you could be Chunin level in terms of strength and power, yet, that didn't mean you deserve to be one, right? Power didn't mean anything if you weren't responsible with it, he learned a while ago. In order to become Chunin, you had to act like one. Think like one. Then, you can become one. So strength and techniques meant nothing if he couldn't think like one. He could try the exams many times if he wanted, but if he couldn't think like one, then he wouldn't be promoted to a Chunin. But how did you think like one? Naruto didn't have the slightest clue, and seeing how several of the shinobi he knew, who knew about Kakashi-sensei's question, was very privy about the information. They were very stingy with the knowledge. No, stingy wasn't the right word. They just didn't want to give him the answer. They wanted him to figure it out himself, but he could not, so he had to find someone else who could and was willing to give him that information he needed. They wanted him to think like a Chunin. Since he lacked the knowledge, he should seek it out, right? Find the knowledge himself, instead of just asking people who didn't want to exactly give him the information. However, it had to be from a source or someone who didn't have a clue of the question Kakashi asked, like the Hokage in Ebisu. With only one person in mind, Naruto smiled, figuring it out what to do. Time to see Iruka-sensei again. The next day. It was evening time, and the sky's orange and purple was reflecting on such. It had been such a long day, a long, grueling day of one headache that just would not go away. Iruka Umino had just gotten out of the academy, finishing his class lesson. His head hurt so much, he was almost digging his index fingers in his temples to get rid of the pain. Today was long and tiring for the academy teacher. Dealing with a notorious troublemaker all day, Konohamaru Sarutobi, Iruka was ready to enjoy his evening at home. The boy had taken up pranking ever since he joined the village's ninja academy, and it was really starting to get on his nerves. As was it for the other teachers in the ninja academy. Putting glue on his homeroom teacher's chair so he stuck to his seat after he sat down. Leaving smoke bombs to explode in the men's room dedicated solely to the teachers. It was all very annoying. Much to his amusement, however, Konohamaru's pranks reminded him of a certain former blonde boy student of his, especially in the nature of them. Still, Iruka, after a long day at work, was ready to go home, relax, and read his favorite book. Or he was, until he ran into last year's troublemaker, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto greeted him boisterous with a shout across the academy schoolyard. Yo! Iruka-sensei, sup? Iruka shook his head in amusement, thinking, speak of the devil. Hello, Naruto. He walked up to the boy, ruffing the blonde's hair. Seeing the boy's immediate pout, Iruka couldn't help but to chuckle. Naruto had a small gripe with people tugging with his hair. A pet peeve Iruka knew all too well, and frankly, abused. Still, the Chunin was pleasantly surprised to see the yellow-haired genin. It had been quite some time since he last seen Naruto. He wondered how his little friend was doing. Even if his headache would probably persist being in Naruto's presence. Naruto. It's been a while since I last seen you. What are you doing with your time? Nothing much, sensei. Naruto placed his arms behind his head, grinning up at his former academy teacher. I'm really just training hard these days. I'm in the semifinals in the Chunin exams. You know that, right? Iruka nodded. I know. I must say, I'm impressed. Looks like you got your work cut out for you. You have to fight Niji Hyuga, after all. He graduated from the academy as the Rookie of the Year, and is hailed to be quite the formidable genin in the village. Naruto's smile dimmed. Yeah, I know. I'm still pretty sure I can kick his ass. Naruto clenched his fist. I've been working 10 times harder than I ever have just to kick his ass this upcoming month. Iruka smiled encouragingly. I know. You can do it, Naruto. I believe in you. Naruto grinned. It always felt nice to hear that from his former teacher. So, hey, are you busy? The ponytail-wearing teacher shook his head. Looks like going home would have to wait. I'm off now. I'm guessing you want to eat ramen in a few hours. The blonde paused for a second, to actually think it over before nodding. That's cool, I guess, but originally, that wasn't what I was here for. Irika rose an eyebrow for a second. The boy wasn't here for food? Naruto, even when he was a genin, took it upon himself to go and mooch off Irika from time to time, and getting him to buy him some lunch or dinner. What's up then? I have a question, Irika-sensei, and I thought, hey, since you're a Chunin, you can probably my question. Naruto explained. Naruto looked, quite uncharacteristically, stoic and ready to talk business. What's your question? Sensei, what is like to be a Chunin? Irika's eyebrow rose once again. Like, what are your responsibilities as a Chunin and what's the difference between Chunin and Genin? Well. Irika put a finger on his chin, taken aback somewhat. Naruto never seemed all that interested in ranks before. The only rank the blonde-haired boy was really gunning for was Hokage. That's actually a pretty astute question, Naruto. What brought this on? Naruto bit his lip, wondering if telling Irika-sensei the whole truth would get him the answers he needed. Ebisu-sensei said that just because I beat Neji doesn't mean I'm guaranteed a promotion. Ebisu? That's your sensei for the month? Irika was confused. Shouldn't Naruto's assigned Jonin sensei be supervising his training? What happened to Kakashi-san? Naruto frowned slightly. He's training Sasuke. Irika nodded slowly, knowing the frown was a sign of irritation from the boy. He could see it on the youngster's face. Naruto then changed the subject, continuing the conversation. So yeah, I'm wondering how can that be? How can I beat Neji, and everyone else, yet not be allowed to become Chunin? Is Ebisu-sensei telling the truth or is he yanking my chain? Irika chuckled sagely, giving Naruto the distinction that Irika was going to give him quite the long answer. Well, Ebisu-san is right. You can win the entire tournament, but that doesn't mean you're Chunin material. Let me tell you a small story, Naruto. I had some sort of a rival at my second Chunin tournament. His name was Django. He was a powerful genin for his age, and won the entire tournament. I even lost to him, and I had been a genin much longer than him. In my match, I almost had him 3 times in a row. Thanks to his bloodline, however, he was able to withstand my attacks, before I forfeited. I was still one of the genin in the Chunin Exams promotion ceremony rewarded a flak jacket, an honor he never received. Do you know why? Naruto shook his head, allowing his teacher to say the answer. Because I actually used my head. I had him on the ropes several times, and I showed that I had the ability to defeat him even with his Kekai Genkai. While he relied solely on the Kekai Genkai, I used trickery, misdirection, and deceit to fight him. I fought like a Chunin. I fought like one. He instead fought like he had to win at all costs, and nothing else mattered. He even almost picked a fight with the proctor after I backed down because I decided to forfeit. So the exams is about fighting and thinking like a Chunin? How can I do that? It's all about aptitude, Naruto. You must show that you have the aptitude to become one. You must think ahead, plan ahead, fight intelligently, and know your limits. The difference between a Chunin and a genin is this: responsibility. Chunin are the starting representatives for the village. Genin aren't. They follow their Jonin instructors until they make the next rank. To think like a Chunin, you have to use your brain. Do you know the most powerful weapon a ninja can have? Naruto thought for a second, and answered, remembering a lesson he actually listened to Irika-sensei say before. One he would from now on take to heart. The most powerful weapon a ninja could have is their mind. Irika nodded, that's right. Nothing else. A person could have the strongest techniques in the world. However, if their enemy knows exactly how to counter it, it means nothing. This can be applied to everything: fighting, sparring, and especially missions. No one wants an idiot on a mission with them, or an incompetent ninja messing up something on it. What if this mission has great importance and that person screws up everything? It could not only end up bad for the people on the mission, but for the entire village as well. We're looking for people to lead the youth, not make it worse for them. Iruka gave Naruto a serious look. Chunin are sent on missions outside of the village, and often have missions up to B rank, unlike the D or the uncommon C rank missions we have Genin go on. How can you be promoted if you don't show you have the responsibility to carry out missions far away from home? Remember what I told you a long time ago, Naruto? It was a pretty important lesson in class. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sensei, I barely was in your classes most of the time. I can't recall any of these so-called important lessons. Naruto, rightfully so, was hit on his head. Ouch, Sensei. I was kidding. You idiot. You know damn well you weren't kidding. Iruka growled out. However, the older man calmed down and huffed. Sometimes, Naruto. You make someone want to sock you in your teeth sometimes. Hee, you still love me though, Sensei. Iruka shook his head. What am I going to do with you, Naruto? He regained his composure, clearing his throat. The structure of a village's shinobi system, do you remember it? Rejog your memory. Naruto raised an eyebrow, wondering why his teacher was asking such an easy question. Of course, Iruka-sensei. The structure of the village is all based on ninja rank. Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Kage. Rank-wise, the Kage is on top of the pecking order, and Genin are on the bottom, right? Iruka nodded. There's a reason for that. Rank is important, and it holds a title and a responsibility. Genin lead villagers. Chunin lead Genin and the villagers. Jonin lead everyone under them. Finally, a Kage leads all in the village. Each title represents something. The brown-haired Chunin folded his arms. The word Genin is equivalent to the word potential, then Chunin represents responsibility, then Jonin represents wisdom, and finally, Kage represents ruler for obvious reasons. You are at the Genin stage. You have the potential to do anything you want to do. Everybody around your age does. When you started out in the academy, you were still a villager, you were at a blank slate. Now that you've been Genin for a few months, you paved your own way to what you want to do in life. Thus, potential. So, if I'm at the stage of potential, how do I get to the next level? Naruto asked. The next rank requires something else. Now, you need to be responsible. You need to show you're competent for the job. You need to show you have aptitude in what you do. You need to show that you're best at what you do, and you only. This goes for the exams as well. So wait, the Chunin exams are nothing but show-off contests, talent contests? Naruto said thoughtfully. Iruka paused, but nodded. In a way, yeah. Think about it. The first stage tested your mind, the second tested your body, and now, the third stage is testing both. In all of those tests, you have people watching you. Watching your skills, watching how you act. You need to show you can think and fight at the same time. You need to show what you can do. Matches are nothing more than to give you a chance to display your skills. The more matches you have, the more you can show off your skills, but you don't need to actually win your first fight in order to become a Chunin. It's basically a free get-out-of-jail card for any match you lose. So as long as you show what you can do, you'll pass. Holy crap! Naruto uttered, widening his eyes in realization. The answer to Kakashi-sensei's question was there all along. I just got to show off all my stuff. Naruto loudly finished with a large smile. A little too excitable for Iruka's tastes. You also need to know your limits, Naruto. Iruka emphasized, a small frown on his face. Naruto was a hard-working shinobi, but Iruka knew that the boy could go overboard sometimes. Remember that as well. Responsibility entails using your skills in the right way, not overstepping your boundaries. We don't need more cannon fodder ninja in battle who die because they didn't know when to stop. Since every ninja adhere to their leader's orders, you must be ready to do the same. When you know you can't do much else, you stop. When we tell you to stop, you stop. Naruto nodded, digesting all of his information. Okay, I get it now. So in order for me to become a Chunin, I have to show that I can think and fight like one. Show my strengths, outthink my opponent, fight hard but know my limits. Okay, I think I got it. Good. Irika nodded back, grinning at his former student. I think you got this as well. Thanks, Irika-sensei. No problem. Irika smiled at his former student. He then rubbed his head, in a sheepish manner. You know, I'm actually surprised you came to see me. Naruto looked at the older man, confused. Why wouldn't I? You were the best person to come to. You're a Chunin, I knew you for a long time now, you have experience being one, and you were willing to tell me the answer to my question. The brown-haired man chuckled, shaking his head. I didn't tell you the answer. You figured it out on your own with the information I provided. Another thing about being a Chunin. You were responsible and honest enough to know that your knowledge about the exams was lacking, so you sought out a source that can help you out with finding the answer. If I didn't do it, you would have just went to a library and found the book that has the answer to your question inside it. Irika patted Naruto's shoulder. You're thinking like a Chunin now. Good job. I think you'll do fine in the exams in 2 weeks. Naruto beamed up at his teacher/older brother figure. Thanks, Irika-sensei. You're the best. So I'm told. Irika grinned back at his former student. Now, how about some ramen since you're here? Okay, sensei, but I'm paying since you helped me. Surprised again by his former student, Irika shrugged off his shock and decided on putting on a smile. Lead the way. After discovering what he had to do in order to get promoted after the Chunin exams, Naruto continued his training with Ebisu with a new vigor. When he told his teacher the answer to Kakashi Hataki's question, Ebisu smiled and gave him a pat on the shoulder. 3 days later, after training more and more with mastering the basics of using his Earth-attuned chakra, Ebisu had finally announced to Naruto that they were starting on learning ninjutsu. This came to Naruto's joy as he grinned excitedly. The blonde-haired teen wanted to jump around and cheer boisterous, but contained it, and let the man instruct him on the first technique he was going to learn. Today, we are going to work on a technique that I believe you will find not only invaluable in your battle against Niji Hyuga, but in your entire career as well. This earth release technique is a very popularly used one, and has great application in combat. Today, I will teach you the Doton Mogura Gakure no Jutsu. Ebisu then closed his eyes in concentration, before using his chakra, and seeping it into the ground. Naruto didn't see or sense it, but got the idea of what was happening when Ebisu started sinking into the ground. Like Naruto had learned before, Ebisu was changing the properties of the ground from soft dirt, to even softer dirt, and then sunk into it, creating a hole. Ebisu disappeared into the ground, leaving Naruto by himself. Then interestingly enough, the dirt hole his temporary teacher left, patched itself back up. It was something interesting to Naruto indeed. Not a thing or shred of evidence Ebisu-sensei ever being where he once stood, was left. After some time, Naruto didn't hear anything. Nothing at all. He was thinking the man would be digging underground after seeing his little demonstration, but Naruto didn't see the man come back up the surface. Then Naruto was scared out of his wits when Ebisu tapped his shoulder from behind, jumping up comically. Geez, sensei. A little warning next time? The man shook his head, chuckling. Afraid, Naruto-kun? Yes, this is the technique. Can you tell me what you have observed from it? Naruto calmed down and shrugged. Sure. It seems like you used your chakra to turn the dirt softer and went underground. I'm guessing you also spread your chakra underground and turned it soft enough so you can dig through it? There's no way you could have dug simply with your hands. It would take too long to dig through all that crap without chakra. Yes. The first part of my demonstration, admittedly, that is not quite the part of the technique, but you have gotten the gist of the technique itself. I use my chakra to make the soil under turn into a fine sand, and move through it, digging much like a mole would. Hence the name of the technique. So, yes, I used my chakra to turn it softer and softer as I actively move through the earth. Naruto frowned slightly and thought. So, how do you exactly know where you're going with this technique? It wouldn't be useful of a technique if you're digging underground blind. Ebisu grinned, satisfied. Naruto asked the question. I shall show you again. Naruto-kun, I want you to move around to a random location in this training grounds. Do not tell me the location of where you are moving, just move to a simple place. Also, for the sake of simplicity, do not go up a tree, okay? Wait until I go underground for this. Naruto nodded and watched Ebisu tunnel underground again. As quietly and quickly as he could, he moved to a location and stood. It was a place close to a small patch of flowers in the training field, near a large gray boulder. Naruto waited patiently, before he was greeted with an Ebisu sensei that appeared in front of him. Naruto looked spooked again, surprised the man was able to find him with no effort at all. How the heck did you do that? The technique has a secondary effect. It can sense the magnetic fields and give me not only a clue where I am at, but what's happening on the surface, and where you are at. Holy crap! That's awesome. Indeed. Ebisu nodded. This technique takes no sort of hand seals to do, simply knowing how to control your chakra consistently. I will show you the technique I used before to create the hole I used to burrow underground with, and then I shall show you how to use the Mogirigakure no Jutsu itself. Naruto smirked. Let's do this. Okay. First, seed your chakra to the ground and let it seep through. Try to use your feet for this exercise. Then, push your chakra through the ground and soften the dirt enough so you can seep through it. Use enough chakra to make a difference in a dirt, but do not use a great amount of chakra to make a huge hole. Only make so much so you can make a hole big enough to allow you through. This technique is only as useful as it used stealthily. Otherwise, you are a sitting duck. We shall work on this technique first before we go on and do the Mogirigakure no Jutsu. And work on it, they did. An hour in, and Naruto, thanks to the help with 3 shadow clones on the side, have figured out the secret of creating a hole with his chakra. After one dispelled after figuring out the answer, Naruto approached the exercise differently than he was doing. Naruto imagined making a circle with his chakra, spinning it slowly before it became a perfect 360-degree circle. Then sunk his chakra more and more into the ground, until Naruto felt himself sinking into the ground. Then, Naruto made a sizable hole for himself. Before he sunk all the way underground, and therefore had no access to hand seals, he made another clone to replace the one that dispelled before, and they followed suit and made a hole. All of them were underground in a matter of time. Ebisu nodded, and walked to the hole Naruto was in. Second, I will show you how to cover the hole. Channel your chakra into the wall of the dirt hole you create, and then move the chakra to cover the hole itself. Naruto took a bit of time to get what was instructed of him, but with experimentation from him and his clones, he gotten it, and now the light of the day was gone. He could now only hear Ebisu's voice. Man, it's fucking dark down here, sensei. The underground usually has no candle lights to guide you, Naruto-kun. Came the deadpan response from Naruto's teacher. Now, we shall work on the Mogirigakure no Jutsu. You shall use the magnetic fields to help you find where you are, then your clones, and then me. Channel chakra into the dirt, change it to sand, and spread it around where you are, then when you get it, move. Naruto nodded to himself, before closing his eyes in concentration. Since he didn't have enough room to raise a hand, he should have made a large hole, he lamented to himself. He would have to use his body itself to place chakra to the dirt wall in front of him, and that was a little more harder than simply using his hands. His hands was the most used place of concentrating his chakra after all. Nevertheless, Naruto gotten it down, and with his teacher's instruction, moved slightly in the sand, turned dirt and dug with his hands and feet. "Okay, where are you?" Ebisu yelled. It was probably the only way Naruto could hear him. Naruto definitely couldn't see him. Naruto kept his eyes closed, and focused on sensing above the earth's surface. "I am by a tree with a long cut-in, sensei. A few steps in front of me." Naruto yelled back. "Where are your clones?" "One clone's in the front of the forest tree I was talking about, directly in front of me. Another clone is more to my left, nearby a stream of water, and the last clone is nearby the entrance of the training grounds, sensei, in back of me." Ebisu then yelled again, "And where am I?" Naruto concentrated again for a brief moment. "You're by a big boulder, a few meters to my right, sensei." "Excellent. Naruto, you and your clones dig back above ground." "Yes, sensei, Databeo." The original Naruto started digging diagonally up, and pushed through, until he was completely vertical, and felt the earth above him soften, so he can climb out. Naruto stopped channeling chakra into any part of his body lest he sink again, and looked at his clones. The two nearby him raced over by him, and grinned triumphantly, while he did the same. The clone the most far out, by the entrance of the large training grounds, dispelled, and Naruto was fed its memories. "Splendid job, Naruto-kun. A little more work with the technique, and I am sure you will find it very useful in the exams to come." Naruto grinned. "It's cool. I think I'm going to like this." "Yeah." A combination with his clone, and he could see everything on the battlefield, both on ground and under it. Best thing was none of his opponents wouldn't have any sort of idea. The element of surprise was a powerful tool indeed. "So, what next, sensei?" "You know, after I mess with this technique a little bit more." "What is next?" We have made excellent time in the short time of 2 weeks. You have worked on your chakra control quite a bit, learned how to walk on water, learned how the basics of molding earth chakra, the basics of chakra flow into items, and learned an earth ninjutsu. So, the next step will be to relax for today." Ebisu secretly enjoyed Naruto's following reaction. The boy tripped on something in the air, and planted his face into the ground. "Wait, what?" Naruto yelled from the ground. "I say we can take a small break from all of this, Naruto-kun. Especially today. It's not even lunchtime, and you have done what I had planned you to practice all day. Good job. So wait, what am I supposed to do then? I want to learn more." Naruto started picking himself off the ground. "There's nothing you're willing to teach me today?" "Nothing at all." Ebisu chuckled, looking over at Naruto's defiant stare. "I did not say you could not learn something today, just not from me. We have been training straight for several days, from sun up, to the evening itself. Honestly, my teaching energies are drained." Naruto had a feeling that was a lie. "It's almost lunch anyway, if you had not noticed, Naruto-kun. Go eat something, maybe practice on your own, or better yet, go do something else for the day. Have you ever went to the library like I asked almost a week ago?" Naruto grunted, admitting, "No, sensei." "Then maybe it's time to brush up a little on your knowledge of the Byakugan." Naruto wanted to growl at his teacher, but it came out more like a whine. "Fine. Ta-ta, Naruto-kun." Ebisu then disappeared in instantaneous movement, a sign of the Shunshin no Jutsu. The common way a jonin liked to run away from a person. Naruto sighed dejectedly, and picked up his belongings. At the moment, his stomach did growl at him, and Naruto knew the man caught him good. Lunch at Ramen Ichiraku again. There were 3 main libraries in Kanahagakure. The first other one was the Kanahagakure Archive Library, which a place had information on people of the village. The archive library stored profiles, documented history of past and current shinobi of the village, had sections dedicated to missing nin of the world that once belonged to Kanahagakure, a station where they could pick up bingo books that contained information on blacklisted ninja whether or not they were rogue shinobi, and information about several factions, minor civilian villages, countries, and hidden villages inside and outside Hai no Kuni. The library was built inside the Hokage Rock Monument Mountain, high and tucked away. Naruto never been there, but maybe it would come in handy when he went up in rank. Besides, he doubted he even had clearance to go up there. The second one was the more standard one, the Konoha Civilian Library, or simply the Konoha Library. It was a library open to the general public of Konoha. Centrally located in the heart of the village, the business section, general information involving simple books like how to cook or advanced books involving mathematics, medicine and health, economy, history, or other subjects belonged in this library. Generally, the library was visited mostly by civilians, but some shinobi, especially ones who were studying medicine and becoming the village's top doctors, who visited the place. Naruto visited the library a few times in his life, but not very much. Besides learning how to cook on his own, and along other basic things that were good for anyone to know, Naruto felt he didn't need to go there. The final one was one Naruto felt he would be visiting more and more in the near future. The Konohagakure Shinobi Library was a tall library only allowed to shinobi of Konohagakure. No civilians was allowed in, neither were trainees in the academy or anyone without the right clearance. The reason? Because there was many things pertaining to shinobi, like how to use elemental chakra, inside that could potentially be dangerous to regular villagers. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, huinjutsu, if it was a ninja art, you would find it in this place. Naruto headed over to the Konohagakure Shinobi Library after his lunch. Naruto had to tell the people at the front desk of his registration number and show them his ID card. It had been his first time in the library, and they gave him an ID card so he can further go inside and access the library's books without showing them his card every time. They also mentioned the card also upgraded when he rose up in ranks in the Konohagakure Ninja Force. Without their ID, Naruto would have to present his regular ID every time, and sometimes, Naruto didn't carry around the card in his village. He felt no need. The card was free, so Naruto saw no reason not to get it. Naruto was greeted by a librarian, some brunette female clerk, at the front desk. She told him the general rules of the library in a bored tone, droning on as if she said this exact same speech every day working here to the newbies of the library. You can access the library for as long as you can, so as long as we're open. We are open from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. from Monday through Friday. The weekends, we are closed. Due to your status as a genin, you are allowed on the first floor of the library. Do not go to the second or third floor of the library, those are reserved to Chunin and Jonin level shinobi. If you are found up there, you will be banned for the library for at least 6 months on your first offense. Second offense will cost you a year, and a sizable fine. Third offense, you will no longer be allowed in this library. Do you understand? Naruto had really focused on the words "if you were found," and decided if he wanted to learn some elemental ninjutsu that were of a higher tier, he would have to sneak up there one day. Naruto nodded yes nevertheless to the girl's question, and she nodded herself. Then, she shooing him away, and going back to her work, reading some sort of orange book. He knew what it was and he had half a mind to tell her why in the hell was she reading that pervy book, Ika, when she should probably be working on other things, but Naruto let it go. Naruto rolled his eyes at the action, and went about his merry way, going deeper into the library, though Naruto was in no real hurry. Books and him never really clicked. He hated reading, writing, and anything pertaining to a book. Still, the place had its uses, and since it housed information about techniques ranging from all ranks, it was useful. However, since he was a genin, that gave him access to low-rank techniques. Normal genin didn't have access to A or B rank techniques right off the bat or couldn't perform them. Because of the lack of chakra, knowledge, or experience with them. Technically speaking, he wasn't supposed to know a technique like the Kage Bunshin anyway, since the technique and its kenjutsu variant was in the Scroll of Seals, the scroll he stole that night when he failed the graduation exam out of his academy. However, since he had already astounding chakra levels, he could use his favorite ninjutsu effectively. Even more than that, learning elemental ninjutsu like Earth Release was an art most genin his age didn't even dabble into, focusing on learning advanced chakra control exercises instead. If he wanted to learn more stuff, he probably would have to learn it somewhere else, like his teacher. However, all of that wasn't his intention today. The place wasn't just a place that had info about normal techniques. It had information about Kekai Genkai, and more importantly, it housed information about dojutsu such as the Byakugan. That was his mission, find more about the Byakugan his opponent would be wielding. Naruto wandered and wandered, looking up the B section of the first floor of the library, and moved his eyes from many books. Spelling out Byakugan in his head, he seen several books first starting with Byakugan as its title. He started humming a Johnny tune, taking his time trying to find the book as he seen others either walk past him from outside the aisles. Finding the book Byakugan, the all-seeing eye, and taking it off the shelf, Naruto scrubbed the book once of some dust, before move out of the aisle. Doing that got him to run into someone he knew. Naruto? You're here? Naruto looked at the person and raised an eyebrow for a second. Then, he grinned. Oh, hey Shikamaru. Funny running into you, well, literally. Shikamaru didn't acknowledge the tasteless pun, and rose his own eyebrow at Naruto. What are you doing here? This is a library, usually people are here to read. And I am too. I'm looking for a book to read. I see you came here specially to just antagonize me. Naruto deadpanned. Idiot. The Nara boy lazily drawled, while rubbing the shoulder Naruto bumped into. I'm here looking for a book for Choji. Guy asked seeing I was coming here originally to return a book. Naruto nodded, before returning to scan the books on the wall. This is my first time in here. I was looking for a book on Kekai Genkai. Bloodlines? Why are you looking for that? I have an opponent who has a dojutsu, duh. Naruto rolled his eyes. Why wouldn't I look up a book about Kekai Genkai? The dark-haired boy next to him in the aisle shook his head at the blonde. You sure as hell pick a good time looking for something to beat Niji with, Naruto. The Chunin Exams semifinals is starting in less than 2 weeks. How are you supposed to come up with anything that can counter it? Don't worry about me, Shikamaru. Naruto shot back cattily, a little annoyed at the normal lazy boy's attitude. Most of this conversation was either Shikamaru taking shots at Naruto's own abilities, or insulting his intelligence. You should just worry about your own self. Your opponent can throw freaking tornadoes at you, I suggest you learn how to dodge them. Troublesome. I'll stop teasing you, and leave you alone. Later. As Naruto saw the boy leave, an idea popped in his head. Hey, Shikamaru. Yeah? Do you have some information about the Byakugan that I can use? Didn't hurt asking about it, especially when he knew the Nara boy was much smarter than he let on. Nothing I can think of. Sorry. I got to go anyway, and pick up this cookbook for Choji anyway. Wait. Naruto yelled, and got hushed by people in his aisle and some others nearby. Sorry. He called back, only to get hushed again. The boy grumbled, and with a more quieter voice, said, Dude, just help a friend out. If I had info, I would tell you about the Suna chick you got to fight in the exams. Can't you help a fellow leaf Nin out? Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Don't pull the friend card, Naruto. We barely talked in the academy, let alone our friends. Naruto narrowed his blue eyes at the guy, before sighing dejectedly. Fine. I guess I'll figure it out myself. Shikamaru paused, seeing Naruto's face, before sighing in guilt. Fine. I'll tell you all I know about the darn Byakugan. Okay? Naruto's face immediately perked up, a triumphing smile on his face. Great. Thanks, Shika. Keep your voice down, loudmouth. The Nara groaned, knowing he had been conned by the sad act by Naruto. And who told you that you can call my Shika? Bah. Damn. Whatever. Alright, so the Byakugan. It's a pearly white, seeing eye technique that is in the possession of all Hyuga clansmen and women. You know the basics. The dojutsu allows the user to see through solid objects, have a near 360 degrees field of vision, see through several disguising techniques, have telescopic-like range of sight, and the ability to see chakra flow. This makes these people great trackers and strong opponents. They also are natural counters for genjutsu and several ninjutsu as well. Naruto nodded, already knowing most of this information from Ebisu-sensei. Anything else I should know? Well, if you're expecting to fight Niji using a frontal approach, then you're going to lose fast. Charging in on a Hyuga using simple taijutsu is suicide. Keep your distance, of course. That's what I would do, but I don't know if you got any techniques that are at a range. You strike me as a close-range fighter, really. Naruto didn't say anything, not willing to tell or brag Shikamaru about his new Earth release technique. Even if a little part of him wanted to. Ebisu-sensei advised him not to reveal to anyone what he learned, outside them being the Hokage himself. Suppose his enemy was in the next aisle. Listening in on him and Shikamaru's conversation? Niji was, after all, from the same village as them. Who knew where his opponent could be? Okay, no rushing in, and keep my distance. I figured as much. Nothing new. Your sensei told you all of this before? Seeing Shikamaru's colleague nod, the Nara sighed. So why the heck did you ask me? You might had info I didn't know. You were still useful and I confirmed what I know before. Thanks. I would tell you what I knew about that Suna chick, but... You mean Temari? Shikamaru grunted. I know enough. She's proficient in wind release techniques. Instead of keeping my distance, I need to actually be close to her, and that's not the style of combat I specialize in. The faster I put her down, the faster I win. Maybe even take away her fan, if I can imagine. Her fan? Yeah, she uses her wind attacks using that as a medium. Take that away, and it'll make it easier to deal with her. Yeah. Naruto grinned, encouragingly. You'll kick her ass. She's not that tough. The ponytail shinobi raised an eyebrow at his livelier colleague. She kicked Tenten's ass easy, and Tenten's whole team has much more experience as shinobi than our entire graduating class. She was the strongest kunoichi in the exams that's from our village. Naruto nodded his head. I guess you're right then. She will be tough. I definitely know that. She and her siblings, especially that Gaara guy, are not normal genin. Shikamaru rubbed his shoulder, shaking out some phantom pain. As if the thought of fighting the Sunagakure kids would be painful. Naruto wasn't all too sure about that puppeteer. Kankuro he didn't really look like much, but Temari, sure, and definitely Gaara. Gaara had no qualms about murdering people, just look at what he was going to do to Lee. Alright, I'm going to go now. I'll see you later. Stick to your studies, loudmouth. Maybe you'll find something else about the Byakugan that I don't know. Will do. And Shika? The boy once again turned around to address Naruto. Thanks again for the info, dude. We should hang some more. I'll think about that last thing. Shikamaru had a small grin on his face. All right. Good luck in the exams, Naruto. You too. Naruto said back, watching his former classmate leave him with a wave. He then scratched his chin and closed his eyes and thought. Talking to Shikamaru got him thinking about what would happen if he had to fight other people if he beat Niji in his first match. Let me think about who's in the tournament. Let's think for a sec. So, it's me, Niji team, Shikamaru, that Temari chick, that puppet guy Kankuro, creepy guy Shino, even creepier guy Gaara, and Sasuke team. If I beat Niji, and Shikamaru beats Temari, we fight, so I gotta know how to fight him. There's even a chance I have to fight that Temari girl, which I hope not. I mean, I guess I got a strategy against her. I just got to think how I can get that darn fan away from her. This is more complicated than I thought. Then again, I could just try to fight in a few matches, show my skills, and just forfeit. Naruto shook his head, chuckling. Nah, screw that. I'm going to keep going until I can't go any further. Sasuke team's not going to quit, and neither am I. One day until the Chunin exams. Days were winding down, and the month was coming to an end. In a day, Naruto would be fighting Neji. He learned a few more Earth-release ninjutsu for his teacher. However, he came to realize that his techniques were more defensive and supplementary in nature, stuff that was more offensive. Naruto only learned 2 techniques. The first one was a C-rank Earth-release technique named Doton Ishi no Ko, which uprooted hardened pieces of the earth from the ground and dropped them down on the head of target or targets. Supposedly, more chakra fed to the technique, and the larger the size of rocks became. Naruto hadn't tried it out, because his target when using it was Ebisu sensei, and he was trying to get down how to play using it anyway. The second technique was a technique he was practicing for the last few days trying to get down, Doton Kengan no Jutsu. After applying a few hand seals and placing his arm on the ground, Naruto encased it with hardened stone, giving him the ability to strike at his opponents with a hardened punch. It was like a gauntlet made of rock itself. Naruto could do one of his arms or both. Granted, the downside of this technique made it nigh impossible to form hand seals correctly due to the rigid form of the rocks on his limbs. His arsenal of techniques that he knew how to use without hand seals was also pretty low, so that also was a problem. Nevertheless, it was still a good technique for him, fitting his close-range style of fighting quite a bit. The best technique Naruto managed to snag was the Doton Mogurigakure no Jutsu, hands down. Hiding underground was an amazing ability, for a relatively low-ranking technique that took a very generous amount of chakra from him. It was incredibly surprising for people who didn't see it coming, and combined with his shadow clones, Naruto could completely control the flow of the battlefield most definitely. However, it wasn't offensive at all, which could be a problem for some of his potential opponents. Neji wasn't the only person Naruto had to worry about in the Chunin exams. Every other technique was not made to be offensive, but Ebisu sensei assured him that when fighting Neji, it wouldn't matter, since the point of the battle was to make sure Neji never had the chance to touch him, and to end it relatively quickly. Although they trained on hours on end getting Naruto a little more familiar with utilizing his earth element, Naruto noticed they spent much less time focusing on strategies on beating Neji. It took him a little bit to realize that, hey, Neji isn't going to be only guy you're fighting in the Chunin exams, Dumbo. Instead, they came up with a bit of strategies for everyone Naruto could possibly fight in the exams. Neji, take him down as quickly as you could, and disable his ability to use his chakra. If he lacked that, Neji would fall. Not to mention his clones would be key in the match, as will his new abilities in Earth Release. Temari, take away her fan, and fight her that way. Temari made a showing in the last part of the exams to stay away from her opponent, giving her room to shoot off waves and funnels of wind. As Shikamaru added when Naruto last talked to him, a big strong piece of info Shikamaru had given out was Temari's reliance on her fan to use wind release techniques, perhaps over-reliance on her fan. That could work in his favor if he somehow found a way to get her to stop using it. Kankuro, almost the same as Temari. If you could make sure he couldn't use his puppet, he would be just as helpless in battle. Shikamaru, make sure you got in closely, but watch your surroundings, and do not rely heavily on using the Doton Mogurigakure no Jutsu. Sensei explained that Shikamaru could extend his shadows to great heights in complete darkness, as the hole made. In battle, Naruto will be quite hard-pressed to cover up the holes he made when he used the Doton Mogurigakure no Jutsu. If Shikamaru could see where Naruto was tunneling it, extended his shadow to the hole, he could completely immobilize Naruto underground. Instead, Naruto had to make sure he got a good hit on Shikamaru and put him down for the count. Using shadow clones without hand seals might also be a good thing for him should he get pinned down by the Nara's shadow hold technique. Shino, fight him and overwhelm him with sheer stamina. Shino could immobilize his opponents using his bugs to drain his chakra. However, those bugs could absorb only so much, and Shino could summon only so much. Shino, like Temari, Kankuro, and Shikamaru, liked fighting at a distance, so he needed to get in and fight him. Unlike them, however, Ebisu sensei insisted that he didn't to worry about Shino restricting his movements because Naruto had too much chakra to absorb. Sasuke, knock him out quickly. Ebisu sensei had based Sasuke's skills as a prior showing at the Chunin exams preliminaries as he excelled in close-range combat, combining his skills in taijutsu, katan ninjutsu, shurikenjutsu, and his bloodline, the Sharingan, which worked on predicting body movements of the opponent. The strategy for fighting Sasuke was still in the process of being constructed. Sasuke definitely gotten stronger in the month where he was being focused on by Kakashi-sensei. Ebisu-sensei stated Naruto would have to get more information about Sasuke when Naruto watched him in battle against Gaara. However, there was a big thing Naruto caught on about that one. Ebisu-sensei spoke in a tone that Naruto didn't have to worry too much about Sasuke. However, it wasn't because Ebisu sounded confident in Naruto being able to defeat his teammate/rival. It was because Ebisu sounded like Sasuke was going to lose to Gaara from the jump. Every time he mentioned a scenario where it would be him versus Sasuke in the exams, he would start by saying if Sasuke made it that far in the tournament. It was a very little detail that Naruto caught on, especially when Naruto asked a few times about fighting Sasuke. So, what? That meant Gaara was stronger than Sasuke? No way. Now, granted, Gaara was strong, definitely. The redhead from Sunigakure managed to defeat Rock Lee, one of the strongest and fastest taijutsu users he have ever seen, in the exams. Full out, Rock Lee had been faster than that bastard Neji, the Mutt Kiba, and Sasuke team, who were already fast in their own right. Rock Lee had proven that so as long as the person was fast enough, they could get past Gaara's supposed absolute defense. However, Gaara's mighty defense and sand kinetic abilities proved to get the best out of Rock Lee in the end, and ended up almost killing Lee in the end, with the boy still recovering in the hospital. Even after being hit by Lee in that devastating taijutsu attack, even after Lee thrashing his ass around several times, Gaara had still came up on top, and was still in the tournament. Which lead to the final possible matchup in the tournament, Naruto vs Gaara. Ebisu had stated quite simply to him, if you cannot find a way to get past his sand, forfeit the match. Which prompted Naruto to, when told that initially, to get slightly annoyed. Ebisu-sensei then calmly shook his head and explained to him afterward. Gaara's sand prevents him from getting hurt from anything, even when he himself does not see the attack coming. It almost thinks on its own. Gaara's main method of attack is to capture his opponents in his sand, and then crush them. Close-range combat is out of this one, and you lack anything sort of mid-range or long-range attack. He also can use his sand to create attacks for all ranges as well. Your earth ninjutsu cannot do much to him. You must understand that fighting him will do you no good, Naruto. If you want to become a Chunin, you must remember that sometimes it is better to retreat when you know you cannot win, to survive another day. And after calming down, and mulling it over, Ebisu was right on all accounts. Gaara could defeat one of the most strongest genin in Konohagakure he's come to know in the past month, Rock Lee. Lee was also the fastest one as well. Naruto and Ebisu worked on his ninjutsu, some of his taijutsu, and mostly on his chakra control in these weeks. Hell, they even spent a few days working on hand seal speed because Ebisu personally found Naruto's speed with hand seals to be almost insulting. Speed was a little different, and it took a while to refine that. Yes, Naruto felt a little faster in his time of training with Ebisu, especially when they sparred, but Naruto was far from the level of Rock Lee, and was still behind Neji and Sasuke in terms of speed as well. So Naruto decided that it was the right call to forfeit in case he didn't find a way to defeat Gaara, so he could avoid getting hurt. However, that didn't mean Naruto wouldn't try. He would try, because there was no way he would give up so easily against that guy. That just wasn't his style, Databeo. Still though, Naruto had hopes in his teammate, Sasuke, to kick Gaara's ass, and defeat him before Naruto had to worry about the Sunanin. He had more hope in Sasuke than Ebisu-sensei, definitely. Besides all the mulling over the Chunin exams, Naruto found himself having the training sessions every day less and less. Ebisu-sensei stated that Naruto had been taught everything the Tokubetsu Jonin wanted to teach him this month. All that was left to do was further refining of the techniques Naruto had been given, and some more small things like working on Naruto's hand seals. Everything else Naruto personally wanted was to be done on his own time. So training lasted from approximately 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., before Ebisu left out to enjoy his day and telling Naruto to enjoy his. Today, for at least 1 hour, Naruto had trained for a bit on his own in a public training grounds. However, he found himself not doing much, except a bit exercise practicing his Earth Chakra, and applying Earth Chakra to a few of his weaponry. Other than that, Naruto hadn't done much, nor accomplished any sort of new feat. Disappointed a bit, Naruto found himself instead of training wandering back to the village, slowly trekking out the training grounds. It looked like there wasn't much else to do today. Naruto did what he usually did when he was bored. He wandered the village, looking for stuff to do. Naruto found himself in a shop. A little thing that was mostly out of the way from the usual places in the shopping district of Kanahagakure. Frankly, not too crazy of a place, but that was fine with him. Usually, the big stores had people that were far from likable for his taste. The usual stink on how he was a demon childless and bad kid that. Before, years ago, that would have affected him, but now, it was like an annoying little thing that kept bothering him. The guy behind the clerk's counter, a tall man with a black, scruffy beard and not much hair on his head, it didn't shoot him a glare at all, and nodded towards him, but other than that, didn't say or do anything that showed how he felt. Naruto thought it was refreshing nonetheless, and nodded back. The shop didn't specialize in selling ninja weaponry, so you wouldn't find kunai, shuriken, swords, exploding tags, sealing paper, etc. Instead, it simply was for ninja attire. You would find bandages, scarves, pants, t-shirts, sandals of different colors, and even different colored forehead protectors. The protectors were situated behind where the cashier and his register was at. Of course, this store only sold those protectors to people who were ninjas. Best way to show you were a shinobi was wearing your own standard blue forehead protector the academy gave you. They had jackets too, ninja-style GI in colors of white, navy blue, dark red, and black, fishnet shirts, and vests. They had a lot of stuff on racks that Naruto could spend hours looking through, and he was no fashionista. He just liked shit he liked. Looking at all had an effect on Naruto. The genin took a second to inspect his own jacket and pants, and found his favorite combination of orange and blue had a lot of wear and tear upon it. Holes, shallow cuts, and slashes painted his orange/blue jacket all around, and his pants were almost no different. All of them came from older missions, especially from the mission back in Nami no Kuni, and the fighting in the first half of the Chunin Exams. Pretty soon, he would have to get rid of his jacket anyway. He could see some of the inner cotton come out, which saddened him a little. He got the jacket as a gift to himself when he turned 11, and had it ever since. He quite loved the jacket, despite people disliking it. Not like he gave a fuck what they thought anyway. Naruto shrugged. Who knows? Maybe I'll find something like my current jacket here. So Naruto decided to shop for things orange and blue. Fortunately, he found some blue. Unfortunately, there was little to nothing that was orange, and all of them were t-shirts and stuff like that. He was looking for a jacket that was like his. If it was an exact copy, he would be even happier with it. The more time progressed, he didn't see anything like his jacket. There was a whole lot of blue, dark green, and black however. Some of them, he admitted, looked good, but he was determined to find something with orange on it, something. Naruto took so long finding things, the clerk from behind the desk came by, and asked him if he needed some help. Naruto drew a breath he was holding in. Do you guys have orange-colored jackets like the one I have on? The clerk started with, scratching his scruffy chin. To be honest, kid, not many ninjas these days rock orange at all. Not exactly the most inconspicuous color, if I say myself. I doubt you're going to find anything orange in this shop. Ah, I see. Naruto trailed off, thinking about leaving the store. Then again, he was checking the prices on the jackets and clothing he's seen, and the prices were looking nice. He already still had some pay left from the A-rank mission in Nami no Kuni still, and the D ranks his team took on a little bit afterward. But, I think you should keep looking. You might find something with orange on it, just not a jacket primary orange though. If anything, we do have red jackets. That's the most closest thing to orange I can think of. The clerk shrugged. Naruto nodded, noting that in his head. Thanks, I'll check around. The guy gave Naruto a friendly smile, before returning back to his place in the store, behind the cash register. Naruto meanwhile decided that he might not be able to find orange here, so maybe he should look for other colors. He liked black and blue, wasn't against red, green, or white, and hated anything that looked girly. In his mind, he figured purple, yellow, and pink to be the girly colors. Like any 13-year-old boy, he wanted to look cool. He found something closely resembling his orange and blue jacket. A red jacket with black on the shoulder parts, but no white tassels or collar. It was even missing the red swirl that he liked strangely on the things he usually brought. Still, it closely resembled his current jacket, and since he didn't see anything orange at all at this point, his options were limited. Just as he was reaching for the red jacket, he saw something else, and dropped it altogether. It was a mostly black jacket, with a dark orange collar. Its orange collar then connected to an orange middle, and the bottom of the jacket was orange also. On the left shoulder, a red swirl that he always associated with Konoha stood pronounced, and it reminded him a lot of the red swirl crest that was on his current jacket. Out of curiosity, he inspected the jacket some more, and found the jacket's inner lining was orange, and was delighted to see so. The jacket was a 3-in-1 combination, because it also came with a set of fingerless black gloves, and matching pants that had an orange inner lining like the jacket. He imagined himself with the jacket on, folding up the sleeves of the jacket, and the bottom of the pants, and he would have that dash of orange like he wanted it. It would be perfect. Taking the jacket with him to a fitting room nearby, he discarded his beat-up orange jacket, and took off the orange pants he had on, and put on the black ones. He liked it a lot, enjoying how it felt on him. The orange jacket was a lot bulkier than the black one, as the black one was more tailored to his actual size, and hugged him better. The black gloves were cool too, and if he didn't want to put them on, he could always leave them at home somewhere. However, he was feeling with all this black on, his forehead protector and sandals of both blue was looking out of place. Time for a new pair of sandals and a protector then. Naruto commented to himself with a smile. He quickly took off the new jacket and pants, and put back on the clothing he came in the store with. He left the room, walked to the shoes section, and grabbed himself a pair of black sandals in his size. Naruto approached the counter where the clerk was. "Excuse me, but can I get a black forehead protector from in back of you?" "Sure, finally got a style you like, huh, kid?" The clerk grabbed 2 forehead protectors for Naruto to choose from. "Now, a short style bandana, medium, or long?" "Long." Naruto was liking how the long one looked. The clerk nodded, and put the protector of Naruto's choice onto of the jacket and pants. "Anything else?" Naruto shook his head. "I'm good, how much?" After paying, Naruto decided that he was going to wear his new clothing outside, and returned to the fitting room. Placing the old jacket, pants, forehead protector, and sandals into the bag his new clothing was supposed to be inside, he left the shop feeling good. The day of the Chunin Exams. The crowd was alive, shouting for matches to come. Hundreds, maybe even thousands, of people were here, filling the stadium from all sides. Naruto, dressed in his new outfit, felt a little nervous. So many people's eyes were on him today, so many would be judging. It was at that moment he knew that he would either do himself and everyone he knew proud, or prove that he still was the weakest genin in the group. For years, he had been mocked and vilified by his own classmates, most of the people he would call friends, because of his grades, and slacking off in school. But it had been just about half of a year since then now. Things changed, and so did he. They didn't know about what he went through to get here, the hardships he faced to just do so. 1 month to shape up, or lose in the first round. He wouldn't be losing to anyone today. He counted on it. He would not only be doing this to shut Neji up, and avenge Hinata, but to avenge his own self. He was out here, to prove that he improved, and he was worthy of respect. So, come Neji, come Temari, Shikamaru, Sasuke, Gaara, or anyone else he had to fight. Naruto Uzumaki would beat them all the same. The contestants all were down here, allowing the crowd to see them. Naruto stood nearby his opponent, Neji, and even here, he could feel his blood boil for this guy. He was the same type of asshole that needed a good ass-kicking to show him the way. Naruto should know, of course, because he was once that type of asshole. However, training with Ebisu-sensei opened up Naruto's eyes quite a bit. Naruto had much to learn, so much so. He had no more time to act like a kid to do anything of that. He had to grow up, and become that legendary shinobi he saw in his dreams. Naruto could barely hear the proctor call his name, as the rest of the contestants are no longer in the arena. Neji and him separate, he's on one side and Naruto is on the other. Neji is already in his family's fighting style, while Naruto moves to a more looser stance. He remembered what he had to do, and it didn't involve thinking he was going to fight Neji head-on. For what seemed like a while of just staring at each other, Neji was the first to say something. "That's a nice, newer outfit than the clown outfit you had on last month, Uzumaki. You should have not bought it, it's just only going to end up ripped and tattered." Naruto snorted. "Like you're going to be able to touch me, guy. I assure you, it won't be hard. I know how much of a loser you really are. You're a slacker who barely graduated from his class, who won against his opponent by farting in his face. How you've gotten here was based on sheer luck and nothing more. For people like you, or Hinata, or anyone who hasn't been born into the greatness, there's only one place you'll be, in second. It is your fate to be so." For a second, Naruto felt rage into his body. How dare this self-absorbed, senseless prick, who spewed nothing but that fate shit out his mouth, talk about his cousin like that? He was used to people talking shit about him, but not people like Hinata. She didn't deserve that at all, or the beating Neji gave her last month. For a second, Naruto was about to shout back an answer in anger, let his rage get the best of him. However, he took a second to let the words settle in. After a bit, he realized what this was. Neji tried this before against Hinata, and he saw right through it. Neji was one of those guys who had to hurl insults at people just to make them more sloppier. He liked to discourage, or anger people, and then when they made a mistake, Neji would swoop in, and beat them. It almost worked on Hinata, had Naruto not told her to stand up, and although she lost, she fought harder to prove him wrong. Naruto had seen the fire in that girl's pearl eyes, and it spoke something to Naruto. Hinata was a lot like Naruto. Both were mocked and teased because of their ways. Hinata was the meek, shy kid, and Naruto was the loudmouth who didn't seem to stop getting in trouble. People like Neji liked picking on them because they seemed like easy targets, and had their own heads shoved so far up their asses, that the shit fumes started confusing them, and they started believing in the crap they were spewing. They thought they were superior, unbeatable. But they were far from it. They were just bullies, and bullies wouldn't stop bothering their victims, until their victims stood up, and knocked their fucking lights out. Naruto would do so, shape this anger he felt inside into energy he could use to show the world he was no longer the dumb kid from 6 months ago, who relied too much on luck, and less on actual skill. Neji had planned for this, to come in battle, nose high, sneer deep, teeth bared. A few insulting words would aid him, their purpose to make Naruto get worked up, and to make the Uzumaki make a few slip-ups to make him lose the match faster. Naruto knew really what Neji was pulling. Mind games, and Naruto would not be playing it. "So you came to talk down on me, or actually fight me? How long have you been out the academy? A year and some change, and you're still on that kid shit? You best worry about fighting me serious." Neji. I heard all that stuff all before. Prodigy or not, Neji was not leaving here without a knot knocked upside his head. Neji just smirked at the Uzumaki, and wordlessly activated his clan's dojutsu, the Byakugan. The proctor had gave his consent to start the match, and already Naruto had started the plan. His hands went up to use his favorite technique, the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Neji had seen the move, and was waiting for them to be summoned. Much to his surprise, he saw nothing, and Naruto put his hands down. Neji had seen the surge of chakra inside Naruto's body, but seen nothing at all. Something did not sit well in Neji's stomach, he kept his guard up. Next thing he knows, he's barely blocking a strike from his left from his blonde-haired opponent. Neji didn't take time wondering how the hell did the Uzumaki manage to make a shadow clone without him and instead attempted to counter, slamming a palm into the clone's head. The clone went up in smoke, blowing away from Neji. The Hubis smirked over at the Naruto original who kept standing there, it was a foolish attempt to dash. He didn't finish his sentence when he saw rocks raining down from above his head. Niji moved to the side, and dodged 5 large rocks dropping into the space he once occupied. They were large enough to almost boulders. Again, he had not seen his opponent do so, which he found strange. Was this a technique Uzumaki could use without hand seals, or was he fast enough to be seen? And he noticed that it was stones, so that meant an affinity with earth. Interesting. Then, he watched as 4 clones approached him, running swiftly to him with kunai in their hands. Niji waited for them, and swiftly defeating them without much of a sweat. He couldn't help but to snort derisively at this. This is your plan, Naruto? To throw clone after me? Why don't you try something else? All you're doing is wasting time. Niji, however, could not reach fast enough to Naruto's next attack as a clone, or the real Naruto himself jumped out of the ground with a fist, uppercutting him in his chin. Niji heard the crunch in his chin, and he wailed in pain as he flew back. He then saw 4 other Narutos jump out the earth itself and slam their knees into his stomach. The Hyuga boy wheezed in pain. He hits just as hard as Lee. He felt all of the clones hold his extremities, as he attempted to move, but it was in vain. Naruto appeared at Niji's head, and peered down at him. The blonde looked into the Hyuga's eyes, and asked, "Didn't I tell you to take me seriously?" At that comment, the 4 Naruto clones started attacking Niji, slamming their fists into his face. The Hyuga wailed in pain, trying to squirm away from them, but find it impossible. The real Naruto, who stood over Niji, looked impassively at him. My clones have glued themselves to the ground. You're not going to be moving anytime soon. We will see about that. Niji growled, maybe you should take me seriously. And then the clones were blown back by an invisible wave of chakra. The clones flew and exploded into clouds of white smoke, popping when they hit the ground. It was an experimental technique Niji had been working on for the past month. Much like he knew his clan had the ability to expel chakra from their tenketsu, Niji learned the ability didn't stop at their hands or feet. His opponent had been so busy talking and giving him a scary look, that he didn't even guard himself. He saw the Jukin before, and knew they could use their hands to expel chakra, but the idiot didn't count on him being able to expel them. Niji had relished in the surprised look Naruto had gave him, before jumping back to his feet and speeding off to the now retreating Naruto. He closed the distance easily and slammed a powerful palm into his chest, spreading chakra through him to damage his internal organs. That would be enough to stop Naruto, he was sure. Much to his anger, however, he hit nothing but a clone, and watched it explode into smoke. He growled, wondering where the hell was the real Naruto while holding his now burning jaw. Now, things were to be taken seriously, and Niji had little use for taunting the boy now. Not only was it not working like he wanted to, but he had almost lost to the urchin. I swear he's not getting the drop on me again. Niji was feeling paranoia settle in, as he scanned the field for Naruto Uzumaki. So far, his opponent had eluded him, and has been sending clone after clone to him, never attacking him head on himself. Much to Niji's horror, he couldn't tell which Naruto was the real one. Each one of the clones, he had some time peering into their chakra systems with his Byakugan, had exactly the same amount of chakra, and the Naruto that was standing in front of him before had the exact same amount of chakra that they had. His Kekai Genkai would do nothing to help him here, except anticipate where they were coming. But he wondered something more horribly as a thought came on. Those clones, they came out of the ground, and he has already shown his earth affinity. What if he has the ability to travel underground? That made sense to him, as he legitimately did not see the clone from the underground who popped him once in the chin coming. His eyes couldn't do much to help him. He couldn't scan the entire battlefield's grounds even if the Byakugan could see through it. His opponent could be hiding anywhere. Another horrifying thought came to his head, and he wondered if Naruto could track him as well. Another thing that made sense, because Naruto's clone knew exactly where he was, and where to strike his chin. If that was the case, then that would make things more complicated and more a problem to deal with. He didn't know how many clones Naruto could make, but he seen how much chakra the guy had, and it astounded him. The Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was not like the normal Bunshin no Jutsu where it made incorporeal, immovable clones that served as a distracting illusion, instead of an actual attack. These clones were solid, could move, could attack, and could act for themselves without any sort of interference. Plus, they were an exact copy of their creators, down to their chakra levels. That could not take a small amount of chakra to make at all. That meant, Naruto could have several clones who, if his theory was correct, travel underground while tracking his opponent, and never have to show up to actually fight. Neji couldn't help but sober up. His once superior attitude towards the Uzumaki had dried up, and he was feeling some sort of fear well up inside of him. Neji did not have a lot of tools to help him in this match, and he doubted he could outlast his opponent. All he could really do was wait until Naruto came in, and approached him, which was looking like more and more of a dumb idea to do, and his blonde-haired opponent was proving to be less and less dumb than he looked. Neji, for the first time in life in battle, didn't know what he could do to win. Which meant something he had only one option left. Neji sighed, swallowed his pride, and held a hand up. Shiranui-san, he started addressing the proctor who was looking coolly in his direction, I4-. But before Neji could finish those words, he yelped as he was dragged underground by a pair of hands, his head being the only thing above the dirt. Naruto's black sandals came into picture, and Neji watched a fist made of rock fly to his face. Darkness followed for Neji only after that. Naruto walked back, feeling strange as he walked back up to the fighter's booth, listening to the crowd's loud cheering but barely registering it. That match was disappointing was the word for it, he supposed. Neji had really never been able to touch him at all in that fight. Like, really. Sure, he got his clones, but that was only because Naruto had allowed him to do so. Even when he thought he caught Neji before, all it took was switching with an underground clone which he had created since the beginning of the match with Kawirimi no Jutsu, and Neji was none the wiser. Then after the clone had been killed, Neji stood there, like a sitting duck. Naruto scratched his head. Victory was his, but Neji hadn't even put up much of a fight for him, surprisingly. Maybe all that worry about him for the past month was all for nothing. Well, he was sure he'd done pretty well enough to impress the judges, Naruto was sure, and even if he didn't, he was going to the next round against whoever won the next fight. Naruto was sure he would be getting a newer match to show off some more of his skills. That, he could count on. Before the beginning of Naruto Uzumaki's match with Neji Hyuga, Sakura Haruno sat next to her part-time friend/part-time rival for Sasuke Uchiha's affection, Ino Yamanaka, feeling somewhat anxious. It had been a month since the preliminaries, and both of them were at each other's throats literally. Now, both of them were sitting together at the stadium, waiting for their friends to come out and to cheer them on. She found herself feeling bored and lonely without the presence of her teammates. Sasuke, she could understand, and even missing Naruto, although he was a headache, felt normal these days. Of course, she would never voice that unless Naruto thinks she was starting to like him or something perverted like that. Boys. Not being in the tournament meant she didn't have much to do this month, and she didn't see her team at all. No missions since Kakashi-sensei was devoting his time training Sasuke, and Naruto was getting his training somewhere. Sakura really didn't know any of the details really of either of their training, and she admitted she was worried more so for Naruto than Sasuke, since Sasuke was getting training from Kakashi, and Sasuke-kun was already a fantastic shinobi anyway. She didn't like to admit it, but she was worried about Naruto. Hopefully, he was getting some good amount of training somewhere in the village. Sakura didn't know much about Neji Hyuga, but she knew that he was a strong shinobi. Much to her disgust when she saw it, Neji beat the hell out of his supposed cousin, Hinata Hyuga, in a pretty damned one-sided matchup. As much as Naruto annoyed her at times, she didn't want to see the blonde get beaten down like that. She hoped Naruto was smart enough to swallow his pride, quit when he had the chance, and not end up hurt. But being on Naruto's team for half a year, she was used to his habits and personality. He was stubborn, impulsive, hard-headed, and wouldn't give up without giving his opponents hell. It was stupid, but admirable, and the way he cheered on Hinata in the last part of the Chunin Exams was endearing. He didn't even know he made Hinata fight harder in that match, did he? He even promised to defeat Neji for her too. She liked that about Naruto. No matter what, he wouldn't bow down to fear or anything like that. That stubbornness was how he was, and Sakura was slowly starting to accept him for it. However, that stubbornness wouldn't help him in this match. She seen Neji in his match with Hinata. He was quick, powerful, and bright. Going up against Neji head-on, which Naruto was known to do so against his opponents, would be suicide. Some part of her wanted Naruto to believe that Naruto could kick Neji's ass, but a more logic side of her told her that this fight with Neji would be the end of Naruto's run in the Chunin Exams. Still, just like how Naruto cheered for Hinata in her match against Neji, or even with him cheering when Sakura herself fought Ino, Sakura would be cheering for her teammate. "Hey, Sakura! Look, they're starting to come out now." Ino pointed to the fighters of the exams, excitement in her face and her voice. Ino grinned. "There's Shikamaru. Looking as lazy and depressed as usual. God, would it kill him to be a little exuberant for once?" Sakura perked up and watched for her teammate. She saw him and smiled a bit herself. And there's Naruto. She drank in his new appearance and looked a little surprised. Naruto was wearing a black jacket, black pants, and basically wearing something newer than his usual outfit. Personally, Sakura never understood why Naruto liked his orange and blue jacket so much. It was a horrible bright shade of orange, and a terrible color for a ninja anyway. Admittedly, her ruby red blouse was pretty bright too, but still, much better than bright orange. Either way, she didn't bother voicing her opinion about it, especially when Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke-kun had already done so for her. Still, it looked good on Naruto. Perhaps Naruto was finally growing up. Beyond Naruto, she quickly noticed a problem with the arena. She seen how they came down to the arena in a line. Naruto walked behind Neji, Shikamaru walked behind the girl from the sand, and the puppet user walked behind Shino, but Sasuke-kun's opponent Gaara of Sunigakure was lagging behind everyone. Sasuke was not there, and it worried her. Ino voiced her worry first, however. "Where's Sasuke-kun at? He's supposed to be down there." Sakura shook her hair, muttered a "I don't know," and returned her vision to the arena. She had that nagging desire to throttle Kakashi-sensei in his throat when she saw him. If Kakashi-sensei somehow got Sasuke-kun disqualified because of his laziness. Few minutes of the announcer. Announcing the semi-finalists, it was declared the first match would be Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. Ino was with the rest of the crowd, vocally cheering, but Sakura said a small prayer for Naruto to herself. "Good luck, Naruto." Ino must have saw her, because she ended up smiling in her direction. "Hey, I think Naruto's got this. Don't worry. That knucklehead's got to kick that Neji's ass after what he did to Hinata, right?" Sakura wasn't so convinced though, and Ino's tone of voice also hinted the same thing. Nevertheless, she smiled back. "Right," she said to her rival/friend, and turned her attention to the stadium's arena, where Naruto and Neji would be fighting for the next few minutes. After Naruto's match with Neji. Did that? MHMM. And Neji just. MHMM. But Naruto just. MHMM. Ha! Was the appropriate response from Sakura Haruno, as both her and Ino fell into contemplative silence. Well, that match was sure, convincing, Sakura thought to herself as she pulled the jaw back up, as well her hanging tongue. She watched Naruto basically destroy Neji in the match, never once getting touched. While she cheered him on like Ino, quite honestly she believed it would come down to the wire, or even Naruto would lose. However, the universe decided that today, Naruto was to beat the guy who was arguably one of the strongest genin in the preliminaries from last month and with elemental ninjutsu no less. She and Ino were looking like gaping fish out of water when they saw rocks fly towards Neji's head, and when clones started coming from underground, it was nothing short of amazing to her. According to what she learned from her books and in school, one learning their elemental affinity and mastering it took quite a while, maybe even years, but Naruto had managed to do so in 1 month. Who the hell was this new Naruto, and where did he come from? If Naruto could do all of that, she could only imagine how much Sasuke had grown over the month in terms of strength and speed as well. She had a feeling that both of her teammates were going to have green vests by the end of the day. She smiled. Ebisu had been to the Chunin Exams many times in his career as a shinobi. Once as a genin, several times as a chunin, but many times when he was a jonin. Mostly as a spectator, but in the rare one he was a proctor himself. There had been only a few times he had seen a few matches end so quickly. He had counted how many minutes the match went on. It came up to 5 on his watch. It only took 4 minutes for Naruto to defeat Niji Hyuga in battle. Using the element of surprise and turning his opponent's arrogance against him, Naruto had seemed to do the impossible. Defeating one of the most strongest genin in the exams was no easy feat, and most of the crowd didn't know what to do. However, he heard some claps, applause. A yell here, a woo. Atta boy, Naruto, there. Pretty soon, the crowd came more to life and a polite round of applause began. Ebisu was one of the many who clapped too. And faces from his peers were delicious. Asuma looked gobsmacked with his jaw slacked and tongue hanging out. Kurenai looked similar, but after she recovered, Ebisu could make out a very small smile on her face. Perhaps she was grateful Naruto smacked literally some sense into Niji. After all, the Hyuga boy did almost kill her student last month. Ebisu personally enjoyed the sensei of Niji Hyuga's reaction after Niji's nasty beatdown by Naruto. Guy downright cheered that Naruto won. Ebisu himself kept smiling, very pleased with himself. This was all because of his doing. The reason why this happened was because of his teachings, not anyone else. Not even Kakashi. He gave himself a mental pat on the shoulder because he created that potentially dangerous Earth release user down there. He did that. Naruto walked to the fighter's booth, the place he was assigned to stay in until he was called to fight. He found himself in a conversation with Shikamaru Nara, who gave Naruto an amused smirk. Not bad, idiot. Seems like you aren't dead last anymore. Ha. Thanks. Earth release, huh? Not bad actually. I didn't see that one coming. Yeah, neither did Niji. In more than one way, Naruto thought to himself with a chuckle. So who's next? Sasuke versus that scary Gaara guy. Shikamaru drawled, putting his hands on his head. But Sasuke hadn't shown up yet. You know they have every right to disqualify Sasuke, right? Naruto frowned but nodded nonetheless. The proctor had already went over the rules when they were lined up down, showing them off to the crowd. Each match had a 5-minute break in between. If one of the contestants did not show up in that period of time, they would be disqualified. He didn't know why Sasuke was still not here, and if he had any sort of inkling, it was more than likely Kakashi's fault, but he did know if Sasuke didn't show up soon, he would be knocked out of the tournament by default. I hope he comes soon. Naruto expressed with a slight sigh. Shikamaru shrugged. Hey, maybe. He didn't seem like he cared either way. Attention, due to the decision made by the Hokage, the second match between Gaara of Sunagakure versus Sasuke Uchiha of Konohagakure will be moved to the 4th slot of the first round of the tournament. This announcement came to the claps and loud cheers of the audience. It seemed like a lot of people came here to see Sasuke and Gaara fight. The proctor, Ganma, if Naruto remembered correctly, who was on the megaphone that almost couldn't be heard by the screaming crowd. Therefore, will Shino Aburame of Konohagakure and Kankuro of Sunagakure move to the arena? Due to the fighter's booth looming right over the stadium's arena, Naruto watched clearly as a figure in black, some Chunin in black flashed into existence, approached Ganma, and apparently whispered something into his ear, because Ganma started nodding a bit. Then after a few seconds and a final nod from the bandana-wearing proctor, Ganma picked up his megaphone again. Attention, another update has happened in our scheduled match. Kankuro of Sunagakure has forfeited his match with Shino Aburame of Konohagakure. The winner by the default is Shino Aburame. The crowd interrupted with boos and jeers. People started protested in shouts and screams. They didn't sound like they were happy. Ganma patiently waited for a minute until the people settled down a little bit before announcing something again on his megaphone. The next scheduled match is Shikamaru Nara of Kanahagakure vs Temari of Sunagakure. Both fighters have 5 minutes to make it to the arena. Thank you for your time. Well, it looks like your match is next. Knock her out, will ya, Shika? Shikamaru's lips moved to make a large frown. Hey, why the hell is my match next? Move my match last, not the guy who's late to this thing. What kind of favoritism crap is this? And why did that puppet guy come all the way here, just to forfeit to his opponent without the match starting? Man, this sucks. Naruto shrugged at him this time, though happy that Sasuke had a chance to compete in the tournament. A ninja must be prepared for anything. That's one of the first lessons we learned back in the academy. Isn't that what a ninja is supposed to do, instead of whining about things? Shut up, Naruto. Shikamaru glared at him. Naruto noted the lack of a witty response from the lazy-looking Nara. Naruto smirked in a small little victory, and patted Shikamaru on his shoulder. Don't fret, guy. After all, you'll do fine in your match. You're going to kick that girl's butt. Humph, yeah right. A female voice rang out, interrupting the conversation between the two Konoha shinobi. Temari walked past them as she taunted Shikamaru, giving a contemptuous glare towards the younger boys. You don't have a chance, Nara. I'll blow you away. TCH, troublesome. Why did you have to say that all out loud, Naruto? Shikamaru groaned. Now I'm going to have to work hard. What? You didn't Plunto work hard at all? Naruto felt his eyebrow twitch in annoyance. Shikamaru grunted out a response. I planned to come from this unscathed. Maybe even quit after the first 10 minutes. Naruto was about to scream at the boy for not wanting to fight to best of his ability, but stopped, thought about it for a bit, and realized what Shikamaru was saying would probably get him much closer to becoming a Chunin. You know, maybe you're not as lazy as I thought. That's a good strategy. Huh? Asked Shikamaru, who, for once, stumped up by Naruto of all people. What strategy? Naruto knowingly chuckled and patted his former classmate on the shoulder. Good luck, Shika. Shikamaru frowned more so out of Naruto leaving him confused than the nickname. Or even the too familiar pat on the shoulder. The only one who could confuse him like that was his own father, who was eons worldlier and smarter than him. However, when Proctor Gunma Shiranui called for him and Temari to come down to the arena to begin their match, he opted to go, instead of paying Naruto's words any mind. Watching Shikamaru's match was interesting. Instead of being extremely fast like Naruto's had been, Shikamaru's match easily went past the supposed 10 minutes Shikamaru said he would participate in. Shikamaru and Temari's fight involved both of them not trying to get caught by anything the other person was attempting to do. Both of them played the mid to long range game, and didn't want to get close to one another. Finally, due to some complex plan, Shikamaru created using nearby objects and the position of the sun to get to Temari from a long distance, and to get his shadow to pin down hers, Shikamaru had the opponent in his hands. And then let her go, crying out he had nothing to hit her with, that he was running out of chakra and there was no point to keep trying since she was a more superior opponent. If Shikamaru wasn't just being a lazy ass, Naruto knew it had been the right decision for Shikamaru too. Even if he was just being lazy, no one else knew, and it looked good on the Nara's part. Irika-sensei was right, if you wanted to be a Chunin, you needed to know your limits and be responsible for not only yourself, but for a team you would be serving on. Out on the field, in the real world, doing risky decisions like fighting when you know you can't, was not only stupid but costly. If you were fighting a superior enemy that you could defeat, that was great. If not, it was better to retreat. Why risk your life in a battle if your mission objective wasn't to die? And their mission for the Chunin exams was not to kill, or to die, or even to really win fights. Their mission at the Chunin exams was to get promote, to show their skills, to show the judges they knew how to think and act like a Chunin. If anyone was going to be promoted here, it would be Shikamaru without any doubt. However, now that the match was over, and the proctor was now calling for the Sasuke and Gaara match to start in 5 minutes, Naruto's earlier concerns came back full force. He was hoping Sasuke would show up. Where the hell is that guy? Kakashi-sensei is definitely to be blamed for this, I just know it. After 5 minutes, Ganma made a new announcement. Attention, due to tardiness from Sasuke Uchiha of Konohagakure, the winner of the match is Gaara of Sunigakure. That led to a lot of outcries, boos, and jeers from the crowd. Oh shit. Then the proctor announced the next match. Naruto Uzumaki of Konohagakure vs Temari of Sunigakure. To the arena in 5 minutes. Naruto reviewed his findings of Temari in his head for a brief moment. The girl from Suna was a wind release user, and a pretty scary user too. If he got caught by one of her tornadoes, he was toasted. He also could not let her get any distance. That 10-10 girl got a taste of that back in the preliminaries. Naruto had to get as closely as he could to the girl without getting thrown around like a ragdoll. He could finish her off with taijutsu. He had a gut feeling she relied too heavily on her fan and her wind attacks. Take the fan away from her, and she would have to stick to fighting with her hands. He had an idea on how to make her get away from her fan. Of course, he had to be sneaky. And sneaky Naruto excelled in. As the proctor started to call for the match, Naruto made 2 clones underneath him underground, as Temari herself opened her metal fan and prepared for combat. As the proctor moved away from them, Temari already tried blowing Naruto back with a wind release technique. Naruto had no time to actually dodge it and so, wisely performed Kawarimi with a clone underground. Not what he originally planned, but it was sure convenient that he had an easy switcheroo technique. Switching with clones always came in handy. As he received his clone's memories, watching the tornado decimate his clone, he performed the Kagebunshin no Jutsu and had the clone appear on top of his position as a decoy and to create more clones on ground. Ebisu had showed him that trick with his shadow clones. Naruto could, if he properly directed his chakra in the right way, make clones wherever the hell he wanted, adding another positive property to his beloved Kagebunshin no Jutsu. Next, Naruto decided to create a squad of 10 clones to act as more decoys for him, while he found his way to Temari. He had a plan that if it worked, it would make short work of Temari. Watching Shikamaru's match with her made him realize that Temari hated any sort of close combat with her opponents, and she made it her mission to get away to spam powerful wind release techniques. Every clone that popped, Naruto received its memories. One clone even gotten close enough to Temari to see her face. The creepy smile had been on her face as she swung her fan at the clone and killed him with a bit of her wind chakra. That girl was having too much fun for Naruto. He shivered a bit. Finally, Temari summoned a large tornado on the battlefield, and threw it at the Naruto clones up at the surface. Her tornado swallowed up many of the clones, obliterating his once army on ground. However, Naruto was far from perturbed, glad it actually happened. Now that all of her targets were no longer pursuing her, she would realize he wasn't even there, and she would be on her guard, waiting for him to come to her. She must have figured he had the ability to go underground by now, right? Naruto created another clone at his side, and Naruto gestured it to go topside and distract Temari once again. Engage her in taijutsu and I'll take care of the rest, Naruto whispered. They were directly under her at this point. The clone nodded and plopped out of the ground, to attack Temari. The sand girl, whose reaction wasn't fast enough, got hit by a punch and staggered away. The real Naruto moved slightly underground, and was again directly under her. Temari, at that instant, recovered and slugged the clone with a good punch, while holding her fan like a crutch as it stood tall on the ground. While this was all going on, Naruto peeked his head out the ground, placed his hand to the surface, and then raised said hand to touch Temari's fan. Then, applying a generous amount of chakra to it, Naruto's technique was finally completed. No more will Temari be able to shoot wind ninjutsu all over the place against him. All of this was because of chakra flow. The right amount of earth chakra would augment a weapon. The wrong amount, too much, would make the chosen item heavy enough to have a hard time to lift or worse, become damaged. That meant it would be nigh useless, and in this situation, it would work wonders. With the deed being done, he was now free to come up to the surface completely. Temari couldn't do anything now. He moved a few feet away from her, and then rose from the ground with a smirk on his face. Temari saw him, tried raising her fan, but found it that she could not, because the fan had become 10 times the weight it originally was. Oh, the joys of having an earth affinity. Temari struggled to get it up, confused on why it felt so heavy. She made a straining noise, which became confused, and ultimately, it then became frightened. She then opted to abandoning the fan, as it dropped and slammed into the ground like a bag of bricks, and moved away. As she was doing that, Naruto approached in swiftly, and swung at her with a fist right at the chin. Temari barely guarded against it, but it proved to be a bad idea, the bones of her forearm groaning in protest. She managed to move away, and couldn't help but growl in frustration. "What did you do to my fan?" "Oh, you noticed? I just made it useless. I seen how you fought before. You rely on your fan to use wind attacks, right?" Naruto rhetorically questioned, already summoning 2 clones under his opponent. He was just making idle conversation now. Wait, you have access to earth techniques, right? You used it to make my fan heavier." She was starting to sweat bullets. The Sunagakure girl had realized she had made a huge mistake allowing Naruto to get any close to her, and, after a few seconds, realized she made a worse one when she didn't move and chose to stand there gawking in awe. Hands grabbed her from the underground, and she yelped in surprise and fear as most of her body was dragged underground, her chin nearly slamming into the ground itself. She watched as Naruto walked up to her in a brisk pace, seen him crouch, and felt a kunai on her throat. "Surrender," he stated. "You're finished." She sucked her teeth, knowing when she was beat. "Damn it. Alright, I forfeit." Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. The proctor called out from a few feet away. Naruto grinned and preened as the crowd cheered him on. Temari growled, looking as Naruto started to dance around like a little kid in the arena. "Hey, idiot! Get me out of here already!" Naruto obviously heard her cry, and smirked. "Why? It's not like you can do anything to get out of it. Ask nicely, and maybe I'll get you out of there." She heatedly stared at him, and then frowned at the male proctor from Konoha. Hey, can't you get me out?" Maybe, though the kid is onto something here. What's the magic word that will get you out of there? Temari's face heated up in embarrassment and anger. She stared at the ground for a few seconds before mumbling out a please. Thankfully, Naruto heard her, and she was released. Naruto smiled at her, and said, "Good fight," before leaving. Temari huffed, but begrudgingly acknowledged the guy actually beat her. Despite the dopey look and matching smile, the little brat was actually pretty clever. A strategist, maybe? She could at least respect that. She supposed she shouldn't be too mad. After all, in a little bit, Sunagakure would be getting the last laugh in on Konohagakure. Winner, Gaara of Sunagakure. Naruto watched, cringing as the match between Gaara and Shino Aburame, Naruto's former classmate and fellow countryman, finally came to a close. It was a fast, nasty matchup that lasted a lackluster few minutes before Shino decided to forfeit smartly. First, Shino's fighting style was a stationary style where he sent his insects at the enemy and drained them of their chakra. However, Gaara's, whose fighting style relied also on not moving much and staying in place, never needed to lift a finger. It was the very same defense sand technique that Gaara had done against Lee, a technique that Naruto couldn't figure out yet, and it was scaring him since he was up against Gaara next. Shino's bugs couldn't even touch Gaara, not with that sand shield popping up every time. Every time Shino sent a cloud of bugs at Gaara, it was like seeing a bunch of flies being squished with a fly swatter at high speed. Shino also seemed to have nothing better than that, which was a shame. Naruto thought it was a good idea to just give up. And he did, but almost gotten killed when Gaara decided, even after the match was announced to be over, that the battle wasn't over yet, and sent a blast of sand at him, and wrapped him in sand. Ready to crush him. It took 3 Jonin and the threat of the Proctor Gunma to get Gaara disqualified, and imprisoned if Shino was killed. Gaara looked angry at them stopping him from killing Shino. While killing was allowed in the match, it became illegal again after the Proctor announced the match to have concluded. Gaara was willing to kill, and for what? That honestly unnerved the blonde teen, and Naruto was fighting the psychotic Suna shinobi next. It was funny, really. Naruto had feared very few times in his life. His first time in actual battle had been against his former traitorous teacher, Mizuki, but Naruto's anger had been 10 times stronger than being scared of dying. Then those missing Nin brothers who attacked Naruto and his team, when he thought Kakashi-sensei was killed by them, he feared then. Every other time, his anger had clouded away that fear. When he seen that if they didn't help Kakashi-sensei when he was captured by Zabuza Momochi of the former missing Nin of Kirigakure, they would surely die, Naruto didn't let fear control him. Then, he thought back when Naruto and Sasuke were fighting Haku, and he thought Sasuke was killed by the ice release user. Naruto was livid, instead of frightful for his existence being extinguished. Even against Orochimaru, who was leagues stronger than anyone he ever fought in his life. He was angry, and that anger drove him to try, even if it turned out to be bad in the end. The fights he won and lost had always taught him a lesson. If he was still breathing, if he was still able to walk, the experience made him a little more stronger than before. That's how he always carried himself in this life, throwing caution in the wind. But Gaara, as he felt his cold, teal eyes penetrate his heart, Naruto never felt the desire to run more than now. That aura he gave was murderous, like if he wanted to, or could, Gaara would slaughter everyone in this stadium, and that included him. It was at that moment Naruto actually thought running away would be preferably. Yes, because that's what Shino did, right? He retreated. It was the logical choice. It wasn't the most exciting, yes, but the smartest choice, the most logical. Shikamaru had retreated as well too, after he figured out his chakra was getting low or whatever lame excuse Shikamaru had come up with it, because it didn't matter whether or not he was lying. He still got his chance to shine, and he looked like he was going to be promoted. It sucked that Shino didn't get that chance against Kankuro to fight, because he did have potential to also make Chunin. Both were calm, cool-headed, and would do excellent in battle. They thought things through before executing anything. It was something Naruto secretly admired about both of them, and wanted to emulate. He wanted to stop being such a kid, and grow up a little, get a little respect for what he's doing and what's he trying to do. He could remember the days of being in school, people laughing at him for wanting to follow his heart and become a Hokage. Admittedly, he was stupid for wanting that because he wanted to be respected, but as time grew, it became more than that. He wanted to have people's respect, yes, but he wanted people to count on him, their loyalty, their hearts, their minds, their love. He wanted to protect the people he had come to care for, he wanted their love, and wanted them to be proud of him. All he was doing now was trying to make the first step. Did the first step lie in just admitting he might not have what it takes to kick Gaara's ass? He needed to know. He needed to see for himself. He believed he could, and he wouldn't give up without a fight. For once in his life, he was hoping to feel indignant, rowdy, angry just like how it'd been against Mizuki, Zabuza, Haku, and Orochimaru. However, he felt nothing but fear, nervousness, and wondering if it would be just easier to give up. This is it, folks. This is the grand finals. Will Naruto Uzumaki of Konohagakure and Gaara of Sunagakure please come to the stadium arena? The proctor yelled over his megaphone. Naruto flinched, realizing the 5 minutes were up. He peered down in the arena, and saw Gaara down there, seemingly still there since his last battle. Naruto again felt Gaara's predatory stare look up at him. He heard the crowd scream, and he could swear he could hear a voice or two yell Naruto. He wanted to believe it was his friends cheering, Sakura, his former classmates, maybe even Kakashi-sensei, and Sasuke if they finally made it. Naruto's fists tightened, and he gritted his teeth. No. He couldn't quit now. He wanted their respect, their loyalty, all of these people. Quitting now wouldn't do him any favors, until he sized up Gaara, and seen how his abilities stacked up to Naruto's. He grunted, wiped tears from his face, sniffed, and walked down those damn stairs. Fuck Gaara, and his scary little face. Fuck the people who thought he couldn't do this. He would prove them wrong. Dead wrong. Even if he didn't find a way to beat Gaara, he was not going to quit, because goddammit, that was his ninja way. Unlike with Neji, there was no taunting. Unlike with Temari, there was no superior looks and arrogance on his opponent's face. Gaara wanted nothing more but blood from him. Naruto didn't give two shits about anything the proctor was saying at the moment. Shadow clones were created underground under his feet, moving all around the battlefield. No one would know, and the proctor didn't seem to flinch as Naruto did it. He needed to set up before the battle truly started. Gaara would not move from his spot. He never will. Naruto had to use that to his advantage. Perhaps overwhelming that shield with so many attacks at once from all angles would stop Gaara from doing anything, and allow Naruto a hit in. No, wait, hold on, he would need more. Naruto remembered Rock Lee from last month. When he hit Gaara, the guy had sand cover his whole body, not only acting as a second skin, but actually as armor. Naruto would need a lot more than simply overwhelming Gaara's shield. Breaking the armor underneath would prove even more of a challenge. It looked like he was heavily relying on his Doton, Mogurgekure no Jutsu in this fight. Begin! Naruto made the first move, summoning some shadow clones, and giving them the signal to move. They moved it, and quickly gotten destroyed by a wave of sand that acted like a tentacle, swinging and destroying the clones, leaving nothing but smoke. Naruto wasted no time, and went underground. He already figured it wouldn't do much anyway. More clones were then created from his chakra, more distractions for Gaara. On top, rocks rained from the heavens, ready to crush the Tsunegekure shinobi, but after getting memories from a clone who was killed right afterward, Gaara's sand only formed a shield, and then after the rocks disappeared, sent sand shaped like bullets at the clones. Shit. Things were not going his way, and he had a nasty belief that there was no reason to go under Gaara and pull him under, since his shield protected him. Actually, going underground was not safe for him anymore, as a tentacle of sand ripped through the dirt he was in. He yelped, as more and more tentacles came his way. He exited the dirt immediately, and found himself again on the defensive as Gaara sent a burst of sand at him, as if the gourd on his back belched it up. Naruto couldn't dodge it, and for the first time in this whole day, he felt himself getting hit. He was blown back by the attack, his back hitting ground harshly. He roared out in pain, hissing as he tried clawing some of the sand out his eyes, and hacking up any spare sand that got in his mouth. Gaara made no move to pursue the fallen Naruto, opting to instead look at him with folded arms and cold sea green eyes. The first time since this match started, Gaara spoke up. He rasped out nastily, pitiful. Is this all you can do? Shoot out rocks and hide in the dirt? Run and hide back into your little hole, pest. A cloud made of sand then loomed over Naruto ominously. I shall end your suffering soon. Naruto knew exactly what that meant, and tried out a newer technique he learned from Ebisu sensei. Without announcing it, he performed the Shunshin no Jutsu and moved across the battlefield, barely missing raining death. Bullets made out of sand pelted the space he once occupied. He stopped near the wall of the stadium, letting go of a breath of air he didn't even know he had. Gaara was incredibly deadly, and Naruto had to find some way to beat him, before the redhead killed him. Naruto summoned more clones, filling his area with 10 newer bodies of himself, already having a plan in mind. The Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was one of the greatest techniques to man. It might been embellishment, but he felt it was a true. Not only it was useful for swarming enemies with cloned bodies of himself, and also as a training tool, but everything on Naruto's person. Naruto had come prepared for the exams, kunai, shuriken, and other various miscellaneous tools he had at his disposal. Naruto had thought to himself that he might as well get his clones to make use of all this overabundance of weaponry on Gaara. You could call it in shades of that one technique that Ten Girl used in the preliminaries of the Chunin exams. He signaled his clones to ready their weapons, as he done the same. The rings of 8 kunai on each of his fingers, he held them up to his face, gritting his teeth. If this didn't work, he didn't know what would. That sand is stopping every change I can get to hit him. I need to stop it somehow. Perhaps I can get past that defense. If I can make it so he can't defend and attack from all directions, it won't work for him. Then they charged. Each clone moved away from each other, in an effort to cover Gaara at a circle. The redhead shinobi stared impassively back at him and his clones, not making any sort of move to move. Sand started gathering around Gaara. He was that sure of his abilities, huh? Naruto couldn't wait to wipe that superior look off his face. Naruto considered his distance, and hoped, that it was at a good distance to not get hit himself. He lowered his hands from his face, the clones all around mirroring his every action, then he threw them in back of his head, bent slightly, and chucked them forward. Like he thought, the sand from Gaara's gourd came up, in an effort to protect him. But it wouldn't matter. Some of his clones went towards Gaara, which the sand raised up to smack them away like flies. Those clones weren't armed with kunai however, and Naruto and the rest of the clones with kunai threw them at Gaara. Normal kunai probably would have done nothing to Gaara, but these kunai weren't all regular. Naruto's clone technique copied everything on his person, and today, he was carrying things he didn't think he would really need but decided it was better safe than sorry. He was carrying a few tags on him, exploding tags. Usually, since they were dangerous when either lit or primed with chakra, exploding tags were expensive in Konohagakure. 3 strips of paper cost at least a few hundred ryo, a whole roll cost thousands. Normally, he had a few strips of paper on him if he could afford it. However, he didn't make a habit of buying them. A few days ago, he decided he needed some, and got a few. They were coming in handy, if he did say so himself. On the 8 kunai each clone was carrying, 2 kunai had been wrapped in already primed tag. 10 clones times 2 kunai rigged to explode equaled 1 barbecued Gaara, and it should break that barrier easily enough. He doubted any sort of barrier could tank a bombardment of explosions like Naruto planned. Gaara also was making no move to do anything about it, except defend, so Naruto would definitely have his way, he was sure. As soon as he thrown the 8 kunai, he moved, hoping to get away if need be. A chain of explosions rocked the area Gaara was in, and Naruto seen a gout of fire and black smoke fly freely into the air. Naruto expected a scene in front of him to be. When the smoke cleared, Gaara was seen again, a dome of sand holding around him before crumbling around him, and that killed any sort of hope Naruto had to win this match. This guy was unreal. He actually survived a bunch of explosions at once. Naruto found his thoughts could not be finished as danger descended upon him. Seconds later, and sand rained down on him from the skies without warning. He went to move, but found himself that he could not, finding sand pooling at his feet, keeping him anchored to the ground. Naruto yelled out in pain as lumps of sand hit him in all parts of his body. The assault finished, and Naruto found himself on the ground. Sand then started covering him from head to toe. Gaara approached slowly. "I despise exploding tags," the redhead hissed. How? Why didn't you dash?" He was soon interrupted by the unhinged Suna shinobi. You, and that damn Yashimaru were both the same in your cowardly methods. Instead of fighting me directly, you choose the sneaky and unhanded way. Killing me with exploding tags will not work. I will not die here." Naruto didn't know who was Gaara referencing to, and didn't care. He was going to die. Naruto was going to die because he was too proud and too stupid to give up. Ebisu sensei was right, Gaara was on a different level than him. He should have gave up a long time ago. And now, not only was he going to lose the match, but he wasn't going to ever fight another person again in his life. Naruto then remembered something crucial: he had left a few clones underground in the off chance he needed them. Such a time was now. "You have been a waste of my time." With one hand held up, he lifted the sand prison Naruto was now encased inside of. Gaara sneered. "Die." "Enough." The tournament's brown-haired proctor barked at Gaara. "The match is. Don't tell me what to do." Gaara glared hatefully at the examiner, squeezing his hand down as he did so. The sand exploded, but Gaara was angered further for not being able to see his opponent's blood mixed with it. Instead, the sound of one of Naruto's clones popping sounded off. Naruto escaped during the time the proctor and Gaara started arguing with a version of the Kawarimi no Jutsu that didn't involve hand seals. It was out of pure luck there. Naruto climbed out of the underground, finding himself quite a distance from Gaara now. For all intents and purposes, I should have died right there and then, he fearfully panted to himself and thought. He just received the full memories of the unfortunate clone he switched with. The sand imploded on itself, and crushed the clone to bits before it was dispelled. If he got hit by that attack, there would be no coming back. That was too close, too close. He not only almost lost the fight, but his life as well. Gaara survived a series of explosions that should have enough to put anything down. He was out of options. Something told him that trying that again would not work in his favor, and it was best to just do what Ebisu said he should do before. Naruto hated it, but he realized that he had done a lot in this tournament. He defeated Neji and Temari both in pretty decisive victories. Gaara was in a whole different league than the previous two opponents he fought. It was time to stop fighting. Proctor-san. I forfeit. Naruto declared quickly, without feeling an ounce regretful about it. Danma looked pleased with such. Winner, Gaara of Sunagakure. The crowd then cheered loudly. Gaara is the winner of the Chunin Exams. Naruto sighed in relief. Thank goodness. It's over. Good thing too. The proctor glared over in Naruto's direction. Be glad you were able to get out of that prison technique alive, kid. Gaara, however, did not share everyone's pleasure. No, no. You are not supposed to quit. We are not finished yet, Uzumaki. Much to Naruto's horror, Gaara flung away the proctor with his tail. The cheers of the crowd stalled, and Naruto heard Gaara yell out angrily to him, "Mother wants your blood, Uzumaki. We shall continue fighting." You're insane. I gave up already. Naruto stated, looking more alarmed as Gaara approached him slowly like a cat did to a mouse, like a lion stalking its prey. Naruto took a breather when 6 ANBU stepped on the battlefield, all of them surrounding him and Gaara. Get back, kid. One of the ANBU, a man said to Naruto, who gladly started to move. Away. Gaara of Sunagakure, for attacking a member of Konohagakure, you are hereby under arrest. Surrender or face the consequences. Gaara snarled, then yelled out in pure anger, and perhaps a bit in pain. The disturbed boy started clutching his head. What's that, mother? You want their blood, all of their blood? Why yes, yes. I will give you their blood. All of them. And then, hundreds of bullets of sand exploded from under Gaara's feet, hitting everyone near the far-gone shinobi. Naruto was lucky enough to not be anywhere near Gaara. Well, that settled it. Naruto need to get the fuck out of here. Let someone else deal with this. He froze, and paralyzed when he felt a wave of killer intent wash over him like a flood. Naruto stiffly turned back, and found it was the wrong thing to do when spheres of sand started to stick to Gaara's figure, until he started warping into some demonic creature. And now, you're mine, Uzumaki. As this went on, Naruto heard an explosion from over his head, and found a plume of white smoke in the Hokage's booth, where the leader of Konohagakure would have been watching the match. More anarchy started in the stands themselves when he started hearing yelling and sounds of battle all around him. All around him, the world went to shit. And no one gave him a memo warning him? Just great. 1 hour back. So, remind me, why aren't we at the stadium yet, sensei? Sasuke Uchiha groused, hastily putting on his fully black bodysuit, strapping on the white buckles that adorned his arms and legs. Because training had gotten considerably brutal over the past month with Kakashi Hatake, Sasuke's favorite blue and white Uchiha clan outfit had now too many cuts, rips and tears in the fabric. His shorts in general probably took way too many Senin Goroshi from Kakashi-sensei, and yes, despite the disingenuous assertions running around town, Sasuke Uchiha did not like people, especially grown-ass men, doing any sort of things near or to his ass. People took the fact that he was more focused on training, and not drooling over women or showing too unhealthy of an interest on the opposite sex, as some sort of confirmation that he was gay, and he was not. There was plenty of girls he thought were cute, Hinata, though her meekness also turned him off, 1010, though he heard she got destroyed by that Temari chick from Sunigakure, Temari, who destroyed 1010, that movie actress, Yuki Fujikaze, pretty much any female who wasn't in his fan club that was cute. But he was focused more on the whole killing my older brother because he was a bitch for killing my entire clan part of his life. People just didn't understand. Plus also, breaking apart his name, and emphasizing the Yuk part of his name was not funny either. Even if he did swing that way, he was definitely a Seme, damn it. Wait, why was he getting into that? Oh yeah, because Sasuke's perverted teacher stuck his fingers up his ass before during training. What the fuck? Kakashi was lucky they were all considered adults in the eyes of the law due to their profession, otherwise he would definitely be seen as a child molester. Though, if he wanted to, all he had to do was get the guy arrested for sexual harassment. Lucky for the silver-haired pervert, Sasuke was kind enough to ignore it, because he really needed that training. Itachi wasn't going to kill himself, after all. Or, at least Sasuke hoped that fucking weasel didn't do so, because that would just be not fair. So sorry, Sasuke. We ended up training so late, and we were pretty tired. I actually forgot to set the alarm for us to wake up. Kakashi chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. You're meaning to tell me that we're late because you forgot to set the alarm? The raven-haired Uchiha growled at his teacher. Kakashi had the gall to look sheepish. Now, Sasuke. We're only about 30 minutes from the stadium. It won't take very long to get there. Can't we just use the Shunshin to get over there? The genin groaned, the closest thing Kakashi was going to get to a childish whine from the usually stoic Sasuke. The Jonin shook his head, lips twisting into what Sasuke thought to be under that blue mask, a smile. And waste a portion of your chakra before you even got to fight in the tournament? Not a good idea. If anything, we can just use Shunshin when we get into the village in order to get to the stadium. Therefore, we can show up coolly in the arena when your match starts. I understand the necessity to be stylish, but let's do it smartly, Sasuke. After all, Kakashi himself had been doing it for years himself. Kakashi was the master of being cool. Sasuke just made his signature HN, effectively ending the conversation, and attached the kunai pouch to his backside, clipping on the bag to his person. Kakashi finally threw on his green flak vest, and urged his student to move from under the tan tent they shared. The Uchiha teen then took down the tent along with Kakashi. He watched in some interest as Kakashi took a scroll out of his pocket, unraveled it, and watched him place it near the tent. Kakashi did a half-ram hand seal, and the tent, and all of the contents inside the tent, get sucked into the scroll. Fuinjutsu was interesting to Sasuke, and it seemed to have its practical uses like creating exploding tags, making scrolls, and more. Not like he was in a hurry to learn any of it. Besides maybe making your own storage seals to carry a nearly infinite amount though, he didn't really think it served much of a purpose offensively. Which Sasuke needed. He needed plenty of techniques he could use in battle. He needed to kill Itachi, no matter what, and nothing else. Today, he was going against Gaara, supposedly one of the strongest genin in this tournament, and it put shivers down Sasuke's spine. Shivers of excitement, of course. He didn't watch the match Gaara had against Rock Lee, the guy who Sasuke was already interested in having a battle with because Rock Lee attacked him early in the tournament, and managed to get a clean hit on him. However, he did hear things about Gaara from Kakashi, that he was a formidable shinobi with the unique ability to manipulate sand to the point of making constructs like barriers, shields, and using the sand offensively in attacks. Kakashi called it an absolute defense. Sasuke wondered how true was that. Nothing was absolute. Of course, he wouldn't be able to test his newer skills against Gaara if he didn't get to the stadium in time. Sasuke and Kakashi moved briskly back into the forest leading towards Konohagakure. Kakashi said it would take 30 minutes to get there? Well, Sasuke wanted to be there in 20. They got there, according to Kakashi's wristwatch, around 25 minutes. Not exactly too bad, and Sasuke was feeling just as energetic as he was before. They showed ID when getting to gates of Konoha, suffered a comment from one of the guards, "Weren't you supposed to be fighting today?" and they raced off to the village's stadium quickly. They both wrote off the sounds of an explosion going off as the faults of tournament participants, and missed the sounds of people yelling and scream due to them using the Shunshin no Jutsu. Traveling at high speeds tend to block out sounds pretty badly. When they both appeared in the arena, both were greeted by not only their teammate, Naruto Uzumaki, flying away from being attacked by something, but a grotesque creature who looked vaguely human as it approached him. Sasuke observed the battlefield more, and saw a few people on the ground, around 6 people. A and BU from what it looked like. He could hear some of them groaning painfully. Some looked unconscious, or dead, for that matter. In the background, sounds of people yelling and crying were sounding off, and the boom of battle was all around the two. Confused, Sasuke blinked. Wasn't there a tournament going on? Kakashi flinched, and snapped into action. He lifted his forehead protector that was dropping onto one of his eyes, and revealed the Sharingan, which always served to annoy Sasuke. Sasuke, get out of here. The tournament is over, you go round up some of your peers and defend the village. I'll have to deal with this. That left Sasuke somewhat dumbfounded for a moment, as he watched Kakashi run off to deal with the roaring creature before them. Not even thinking twice, Sasuke too went after the creature who was slowly moving towards Naruto. A fire release ninjutsu came from Kakashi, and propelled itself to the creature, who howled, and turned. Sasuke looked into the beast's eyes unconsciously, and froze as a wave of killer intent washed over him. It felt like that time when they were in Nami no Kuni when they were fighting Zabuza Momochi, or when he was fighting Orochimaru in the Forest of Death. It was the type of killer intent that made you want to soil yourself, as you stood there, paralyzed by fear, as you awaited your death. Sasuke almost didn't register the sounds of Kakashi telling him to get back, or when a sphere of sand flew towards him. Sasuke snapped out of it last moment, dodged to the left, and threw a few shuriken towards the direction of the monster, which the metal didn't seem to slow the creature down at all. The shuriken seemed to have done nothing, as more sand spheres were sent towards the Uchiha's way. Sand? Isn't that my opponent's ability? Is that thing Gaara? Sasuke wondered in his head. Why the hell was Naruto fighting him? Unless. Of course. Kakashi gotten Sasuke disqualified, Naruto had progressed pretty far in the exams, and now Naruto was fighting, or fought, Gaara, the only person who was using sand in this tournament. If their current situation wasn't happening, Sasuke would throttle Kakashi for getting him disqualified thanks to their lateness. Of course, this made up for it. He could still fight, and he would do so. He was itching to try out his newer techniques anyway. So Sasuke directed the standard amount to activate his Jujutsu, started channeling chakra, and throwing up hand seals for the first technique he would use today. Naruto groaned in pain, picking himself off the ground despite wanting to just lay down. To do that meant certain death, however, something Naruto was not keen about as of this time. Today was just not his day. It sure started off fine. He had defeated 2 people today in the tournament, and he was close to being promoted, but now here he was, about to be killed by some sort of monster. What was Gaara? Why did he turn into that creature now rampaging across in the arena? He just dealt with the ANBU like it was nothing, like they were nothing but roaches to be stomped on. Naruto feared be the one next, feeling Gaara nearing him like a sixth sense. Thankfully, Kakashi-sensei chose that moment to not be a tardy McPants and shoved something electric into the shoulder of Gaara, the sand demon, who howled in pain. Naruto didn't marvel very long at the electricity pouring from Kakashi-sensei's hand as he himself moved away, and Kakashi didn't stay in place when it looked like his attack didn't do too much to Gaara. Kakashi removed his hand, and once Naruto was at a good distance, he seen the handiwork of his assigned teacher. A sizable hole was now where Gaara's shoulder should be located in that body of his. Naruto took that to mind. Weapons like shuriken and kunai are useless, but elemental attacks seem to work. Got it. More killer intent radiated from the sand demon, and it was so much Naruto found his knees slightly buckle as the invisible force washed itself over him, but the blonde attempted to resist the feeling and kept moving. Gaara roared belligerently, and tried slashing at Kakashi with his sharp claws, but missed as Kakashi jumped back towards Naruto's side. Kakashi-sensei! You finally got here! Naruto exclaimed. Where the hell were you guys? I ended up having to fight Gaara, or rather, this thing. Kakashi acknowledged Gaara was sure as hell a thing now. He knew Suna may have had a Jinchuriki in their village, but to have placed such a person here, as a contestant in the Chunin Exams? Kakashi was privy on the rumor that Suna may be in cahoots with Otogakure thanks to his former connections in the ANBU, but for them to be so damn brazen about it with Gaara here? If he had known already, he might not even had Sasuke fight Gaara period. Unfortunately, one of his other students in the exams had to. Thank the spirits, Naruto himself seemed fine. That meant more of a reason for Naruto to go. Naruto, get out of here, now. Sasuke's here, and I told him to go to find some peers in the crowd to help defend the village. Go find whoever, defend the village, and when you can, get to an evacuation center. This village is under attack. Just as his assigned teacher said that, a plume of fire flew over both of their heads, and Naruto knew Sasuke had joined the fight too. Need some help, dead last? Kakashi looked irritated by Sasuke's presence, but he could do little about it as he found himself on the defensive, dodging Gaara's long-range attacks. Tentacles of sand erupted from the ground, and all three of them were forced to dodge Kakashi and Naruto going left and Sasuke going right. Sasuke was shooting fire around occasionally, but none of the fireballs hit near the target. This wasn't going too well for the three men of Team 7 at all. That showed when suddenly Gaara, with speed that shouldn't have been possible with his large size, flew towards them. Kakashi separated from his two students, barely evading an attack from Gaara, but he soon found that was a mistake. Instead of focusing on him, or Naruto, Gaara rushed to Sasuke and sent a knee directly into the Uchiha's stomach, sending Sasuke screaming and sprawling away far away from the fight. Although the knee looked like it did some serious damage Sasuke, it might have been a saving grace, because what they were dealing with was so far beyond a normal human target that even Kakashi was having trouble. Gaara then appeared at Naruto's side, with superhuman speed, and the demonic figure smiled nastily at him. Naruto froze in fear. Now, where were we? For his troubles, Naruto was the one sent flying with a swat of Gaara's arm, or that would the case if Naruto didn't make the wise choice to make a clone further away from Gaara, and used the Kawarimi no Jutsu with it a minute ago when he had a moment to himself. Stones rained on Gaara's head, but it seemed to not do much to him except annoy him, as the superhuman roared in agitation. Kakashi appeared at Naruto's side swiftly. Naruto! Go and retrieve Sasuke and leave, and I mean it. Unlike that time in Nami no Kuni, I don't want to hear anything different. This guy is way above your level. Get your asses to a nearby evacuation center, now. Naruto knew that was very true. He wouldn't be able to do much here to help his teacher anyway, instead of possibly get in his way. Then the gray-haired man joined a copy of himself in a run, heading towards Gaara, blue lighting filling their hands. Again he did not try to stay in order to watch, trying again to move from Gaara since he would be distracted, and this time to pick his teammate up. Naruto reached his teammate, who seemed to barely be conscious, as he laid down clutching his sides. You okay, Sasuke? And no. That guy broke my ribs, probably all of them. Naruto grimaced. Sasuke was not looking good either. Sasuke's face, outfit, and other parts of his body looked all cut up and bruised. Naruto summoned two clones and had them pick up the boy while they started to make their way out of the stadium arena. Naruto was perhaps a tad careless. Sasuke yelled. Why you idiot? Watch it. The blonde winced and looked embarrassed. Sorry. Sasuke growled, looking miserable. Damn it. I got taken out so easily. I missed my match, and I couldn't even do anything against that thing. Relax, dummy. I couldn't do anything against Gaara either. Naruto remarked. Even after all that training I did, I'm still not strong enough. Naruto shook his head. Gaara is on a whole level higher than both of us. I'm lucky I didn't end up getting crushed when I fought him. You fought this thing all through the match? The tone Sasuke had suggested disbelief. The blonde corrected him immediately. Gaara wasn't like this through our fight. Even then, I couldn't touch him. Now, he seems pretty unstoppable. I mean, even Sensei is having a hard time with him. Hopefully with us out of the way, Kakashi-sensei could do some real damage. Naruto then saw figures over his head, them moving towards Gaara, who was still in combat with Kakashi. And it looks like help has arrived. We couldn't do a damn thing. Sasuke croaked out, starting to look like he was about to slip into unconsciousness. Naruto shook his head. Be quiet, bastard, and rest. There's no use fighting it now, and we got to get out of here. Sasuke didn't say anything for the longest, until he uttered one thing before he fully closed his eyes, Itachi. Naruto didn't think too much of it, because he heard a familiar shriek as he came towards the stadium walls to the stands. Naruto! At his left, his third teammate, Sakura Haruno, came down. She was accompanied by Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akimichi, and Shikamaru Nara. His bubblegum-colored haired teammate immediately gasped in horror. Naruto and Sasuke-kun. What happened? Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei arrived right after Gaara went berserk. Gaara got Sasuke. Naruto frowned. Ino unnecessarily shrieked when she saw Sasuke as well. We need to get out of here, guys. No reason to stay here anymore. Let the Jonin and ANBU deal with it. That's what I was trying to tell these guys. There's an invasion going on, and the first thing they want to do is race down here to see what's going on with you. Shikamaru grunted out his displeasure. Let's get to an evacuation center already. What happened up there? Some sort of powerful genjutsu came down and put almost everyone to sleep. A lot of people fell under the spell. Shikamaru explained briefly. None of us could break it, but lucky enough, we were woken up by a few shinobi who told us to run. Then, there was fighting up in the stands with our side against Otogakure and Sunagakure. There's a lot of people that were killed, both civilians and shinobi alike. It was too smooth. This was well thought out and planned. Suna and Oda were planning to invade Konoha for quite some time. At least evacuations started. Ino spoke up, shivering a bit. Some people gotten out and already headed for shelter. The rest was unspoken about the fate of those who did not escape. All those poor people. Naruto trailed off, feeling anger rise inside of him, but he swallowed it. Let's go then. Things were looking grim around Kakashi as one by one, the extra Jonin who joined his battle against Gaara, who now was the confirmed Ichibi Jinchuriki of Sunagakure, was dwindling. Gaara was incredibly strong, and very vicious, lashing out at anything that got near, being able to shrug off physical blows and weapons. One unfortunately fellow had the ballsy idea to get close and try a combination of taijutsu and kenjutsu against the Jinchuriki, which proved to be a foolish endeavor. Gaara quite literally tore him asunder. Then others who tried to keep their distance, spitting out long-range elemental attacks, found that Gaara could play the keep-away game much better than they could, with the terrain of the stadium working just fine with him. Some were snatched in sandy prisons, and crushed alive, while some were impaled by pure sandy tentacles that appeared from the ground. Worse, Gaara seemed to get bigger, and bigger as time progressed, growing in size, which made Kakashi believe Gaara was going to go full transformation, and become the Ichibi in the arena. Which would be devastating. Sunagakure had some gall, seriously. He knew Gaara was trouble the moment he saw him, but he didn't know how much until this point, where he was almost fully transformed into his inner demon. To place your Jinchuriki in a tournament where he was leagues stronger than the competition? Sunagakure had a lot of nerve. Fortunately for Suna, and unfortunate for Konoha, it seemed to be working. If Gaara became the Ichibi, nothing could stop him. His defenses were already nigh impenetrable like this. Naruto and Sasuke needed to leave, and he hoped they had the good senses to get to an evacuation center, or at least a place where it was safe. He also hoped there was nothing in their ways to prevent that. The village had to be crawling with all these enemy shinobi right about now. Ganma, the assigned proctor for the exams, shot out a senbon, did a few hand seals, and exhaled fire-infused chakra onto it. Then, he did a few more hand seals, turning the single senbon into thousands with the Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Normally, it would be a deadly technique that would kill anyone who got near it. Gaara simply guarded against it, his body becoming adorned with metal pinned all over his body, and yelled out his annoyance when the bombardment of projectiles ended. Pest! Out of my way! I must kill Uzumaki. Otherwise, I'll kill you instead. TCH, this is proving to be annoying, Kakashi. The bandana-wearing Tokubetsu Jonin. Nothing seems to be working. He's getting stronger and stronger, Ganma. We might have a full-fledged transformation here. Kakashi informed, voicing out his earlier thoughts. Seriously? Ugh. We're only 2 guys here, Kakashi. The stuff we've been hitting Gaara with isn't working. A pain indeed. Kakashi responded, feeling sour himself. Gaara's enraged roar made the 2 men tense up. More, I need more power. Mother, give me your strength. Oh shit. Ganma appropriately sounded off as both of them felt that surge of chakra. It wasn't something that could be ignored, even if you weren't a censor. If I remember correctly, when the Jinchuriki turn into their demons, they become extremely huge, so let's get the hell out of here. Then the brown-haired Tokubetsu Jonin disappeared in a swirl of leaves, while Kakashi followed suit. They had just missed the sounds of the explosion in the stadium going off. When Kakashi and Ganma appeared again outside the stadium, they saw what was left of it. The walls were completely demolished. Pieces of it were all over the outside of the stadium, some pieces still falling down above them. Ganma palmed the earth, and a dome of rock covered Kakashi and him. Kakashi flinched at the sounds of pieces of the stadium hitting the barrier. Ganma kept his hand on the ground, heating the earthen barrier for a bit. Kakashi did a few hand seals himself, and made a shadow clone just outside the barrier, in order to check on the state of the outside. Few moments later, the clone dispelled, and gave him visions of the outside world. He patted Ganma on the shoulder, and Ganma took that as a silent confirmation that everything was clear. Well, not everything was clearly, the village's stadium was now left in ruins. Ganma released the connection with his chakra to the earth, and both of the Jonin stared up at a demon that resembled a tanuki, as it let out of an inhuman wail. Well, I think I know how it feels how to be a roach. If it was any other time more appropriate, Kakashi probably would have laughed at the wisecrack from Ganma. As it stood, a gigantic demon was now towering over everything and everyone in the village. All of them were roaches to it. All those people, both ally and enemy, were surely dead if they didn't get out of the stadium in time, and now there was a tailed beast roaming around the village like there had been one 13 years ago. He prayed his students, and the rest of the genin associated with them were out of the stadium and safe. What had happened here was a tragedy. A monstrous roar was heard that had to been heard by every shinobi in the village, and Kakashi knew no one wouldn't able to do anything against Gaara right now that he was fully transformed. Things looked bad until Kakashi saw a giant toad plop down right above the 2 Jonin, destroying some of the rubble that lied before them. There was only one shinobi he could think that could summon toads, and unless his former teacher had risen from the dead, it seemed like Jiraiya had made his scene finally. About damn time too, Kakashi thought, not hesitating to let out that sigh of relief he had been holding in. Things were certainly looking bad, the Toad Sage thought to himself. One moment, he was watching the match's progress in the tournament, enjoying watching his godson kicking some major butt. The next moment the Hokage booth goes off in flames and everyone was screaming. Man, he knew they were going to attack Uoto and Suna, but he didn't know they were going to do this here. The enemy's plan was certainly devastating. There was no telling how many people Gaara killed when the Jinchuriki was allowed to transform in the stadium. Jiraiya knew it had to be Orochimaru, and was about to chase after him to help the Hokage, but then the Jinchuriki decided he needed to transform into his demon. So much for a good day. Jiraiya summoned chakra in his body, and prepared the technique already he had in mind. A biting of his finger later, and a few hand seals, and Gamabuta, the giant boss of the Toad summons, rose in the rubble of the stadium. Gamabunta, who was just as large as Shikaka here, who was currently standing in where the stadium used to be hollering loudly, was going to be invaluable in this fight. The white-haired Toad Sage suffered a minor grumble from Gamabunta, before the chieftain of the Toads started speaking gruffly. Why do y'all always gotta put me through this kind of shit? This is going to be my second time tussling with a tailed beast, Jiraiya. Minato made it the first. That's not ta say what else ya had me fight over de years. Jiraiya snorted. Ah, quit your belly aching, Bunta. It's not going to be all that bad. He just transformed, it should still be getting revved up. Yeah, okay. Ya tell me it's not a big deal when you fight a damn-tailed beast. Gamabunta grunted backwards. Jiraiya could see a giant blue aura wrap around Gamabunta's sword. The Ichibi had long gone stopped roaring maniacally, and started leering in Gamabunta's direction. Well, thank the spirits the Jinchuriki hasn't gone full demon yet, otherwise we would have more problems. Alright, so what do you want me to do? Alright, so the plan is we're going to completely subdue him, so to do that, we can't be here. Bring him out of the village. We'll deal with the demon in the forest. That way, we avoid any more damage in the village. They were lucky that the stadium was already at the edge of the village anyway. Gamabunta wasn't exactly the lightest of creatures. The other snake summons in the village are being dealt with by a clone of me, Gamma Hero, and a few A and BU squads. That shouldn't be a problem at all. After we deal with this, we're heading off to find and help the Sandaime against Orochimaru. Gamabunta grunted, that being the only sort of indication he was listening to what Jiraiya was saying. Jiraiya felt that spike of energy. He was no sensor, but he could definitely feel that energy build up. Senjutsu chakra was up and on. Gamabunta had long ago expressed not liking using it, because he particularly was more versed in close-range combat and regular usage of water release, but it seemed like he had no choice when fighting something as powerful as Ebisu. The energy stabilized and Jiraiya knew his toad friend was ready. Gamabunta was ready for some action. The toads of Mount Mayaboku had already knew the vague details of a possible invasion by Orochimaru and that village, Otogakure. Jiraiya didn't know it would be Sunagakure involved as well, otherwise this defending of the village would go much smoother. Right now, the stadium was now nothing but rubble and a whole lot of dead bodies. It was time for Sunagakure to get some payback. Suetun, Teppadama. The water release technique shot out of the toad's mouth, resembling a cannonball more than a bullet itself. On a human target, that would be outright deadly. On a tailed beast, it would do little more than agitate the demon, which is what they wanted to do. Jiraiya gathered chakra to the soles of his foot, and anchored on the toad's head tightly with it, as Gamabunta was already preparing to jump to the forest. When Gamabunta leaped, the Ichibi followed shortly afterward like the elder shinobi knew it would. Spheres of wind chakra shot out the mouth of the sand demon, to which Gamabunta dodged swiftly. When the village started to become a distant speck, Jiraiya shouted to Gamabunta to stop, and start fighting. Gamabunta had quickly drew forward the tanto from his back, and decided to fight the beast at short range. Seconds later, that seemed to be easier said to done, as the Ichibi decided to shoot a gigantic sphere of wind at Gamabunta and Jiraiya. Gamabunta countered with the Suetun, Teppadama from before. The water release ninjutsu equaled the Ichibi's attack in size and power, and both elements clashed together, the sky briefly raining down in giant globs of water. Keeping the toad and Jiraiya at a distance, the Ichibi then decided to use sand attacks, shooting globs of it from his mouth, and then large spires of sand appeared under Gamabunta. The toad was already out of the way, hopping towards the great beast, who was still hollering at the chief toad and Jiraiya. Gamabunta did a ram hand seal, then tiger, and 6 senjutsu-influenced cannonball-sized spheres of water were shot at the tailed beast, who decided to defend again with a shield made of sand. It proved to be a foolish effort as the torrents of water tore through the sand easily, and wet the rest of the body of the demon. The Suetun, Roku Ido Ina Juzei easily made short work of the sand, and dampened the entire monster. Sand, ultimately, was an earthen material. Normally, earth release techniques was very effective against water release techniques because how it dissipated the force of water, and its flow, making it useless and easily absorbed by earth techniques. However, that would prove to be useful here as the water was never meant to do anything but make the sand heavier and fall together. It was both the theory of Jiraiya and the Toad Chief that water could make sand much harder for the tailed beast to control, and since it was a creature made entirely of sand, it would make the beast slower. The creature roared, trying to put its arm up, only to find incredibly hard to do so. Gamabunta pulled out his sword saturated in water chakra, and cut off the offending arm, and then the other. The beast hollered, whimpering in pain, allowing Gamabunta ample time to complete his second technique. Lowering his tanto and hopping slightly back, Gamabunta then summoned more water into his mouth, spitting it out of his mouth onto the beast. It struggled, but the Ichibi could not move anymore now. The Mijuane Teppo was a senjutsu-infused water release technique with a high viscosity, capable of covering one battlefield with a sticky cohesive that was capable of binding even the largest of foes. A tailed beast itself wouldn't be any different, and with how much Gamabunta had made a point with shooting water techniques at the tanuki-looking demon, the monster would be easily subdued. Jiraiya got a closer look as Gamabunta was set on using his technique, and could see Gaara sticking out of the head of the great-tailed beast. Jiraiya jumped off, chakra pumping in his lower extremities to both help him jump and land without a problem, and landed on the monster's head. Gaara was starting to yell, possibly out of frustration that his control for his beast's power had become almost non-existent. Sand attempted to rise at Jiraiya's side to attack him, but it had been too slow to form, and the Toad Sage was already moving away from its range, and to Gaara's position. Not wasting any time, Jiraiya's fingertips became aglow with a purple flame sitting on each finger. The kanji for metal, wood, water, fire, and earth came forth in each fingerdip, while Jiraiya tore the top half of Gaara's black bodysuit with one hand, to reveal a seal placed on the left side of his chest. He then slammed his fingertips on the seal. The deranged shinobi hollered as the flames burned into his skin for a few seconds, before finally slumping over as the sand demon that Gaara nearly transformed into became nothing but specks of dust and sand scattering in the wind. This, of course, left them in the air. Jiraiya captured Gaara's body into his arms, using a minor wind release to slow his descent down, and reinforced his legs with normal chakra again. Gamabunta did the rest of the job, and caught the two with his head. Thankfully, they weren't all that far in the air, and Jiraiya felt nothing much in his legs when he landed on Gamabunta. Gamabunta seemed to be a few feet shorter than the demon in any case. Even with Gaara now unconscious, Jiraiya took no chances, and placed a hand on the teen's chest. Mud formed around the Jinchuriki, and further usage of his chakra stuck Gaara onto the head of the toad. Sorry, Gamabunta. Bet it feels a little weird, but it will only be for a little while. After we get near the village, I'll make another clone and drop this guy off into the custody of the ANBU. Gamabunta only grunted and hopped towards the village. Jiraiya had prepared himself for a giant leap from the toad. There was still more to come. Naruto and his peers had decided going onto the streets of Konoha to get to an evacuation center was stupid. There was still fighting on ground level, hollering, shouting of techniques of all kinds, and massive amount of dead bodies littered the streets. Instead, the 6 of the genin traveled on the rooftops of each of the buildings of the village, 8 if you counted the clones who were carrying Sasuke Uchiha, who was still very much unconscious. Shikamaru led the front, knowing exactly where the nearest evacuation center was, while Naruto and Choji, the heavy hitters of the group, covered the back. Sasuke, Naruto's 2 clones, Ino, and Sakura covered the bulk of the middle. The rooftops was far from being clear, however. Each of the rooftops they had been on had beaten down with signs of previous battle, and sometimes, they saw dead bodies on top of them also. One rooftop, the entourage came across 2 enemy shinobi who both clad in gray clothing that looked similar to the clothing those Otogekure shinobi were wearing back in the preliminaries of the Chunin exams. Lucky enough, before the enemies knew what was happening, they gotten the drop on them literally. After Shikamaru did his Kagemain no Jutsu, holding the enemies in place, Naruto followed up with his Doton, Ichi no Ko, smashing their heads in with large rocks. Choji, just to make sure they were disposed of, enlarged his arm, and swept them off the roof to the ground before they proceeded again. We're nearing the center, guys, Shikamaru announced, the Nara still leading the pack. It's about 2 buildings away. Thank the gods. We can get some medical attention for Sasuke-kun soon. Ino answered, to which both Sakura and Naruto nodded at. Things turned south when, without much warning, a squall broke out through the afternoon wind to swallow the gang of shinobi. Although everyone got hit, the middle of the group, meaning the 2 Kunoichi and Sasuke, took the brunt of the attack. They landed painfully against the rooftops railing, as Sasuke obviously getting the worst of it as he awoke with a howl of pain, but otherwise, they weren't blown off. Though, Sakura and Ino seemed to still be conscious if their painful groans from the side of the building's rooftop was an indication of that. The remaining 3 male shinobi quickly got back to their feet. Naruto knew who they were dealing with as the enemy landed in front of them. It seemed like it would be another round against Temari with her brother, Kankuro, now involved in the mix. Thankfully, he had his allies with him this time. Temari smirked in his direction. "Well, it looks like we finally caught up with you folk." "You were following us?" Naruto questioned, the blonde responding to the other one's comment with a frown. "I want another fight. You can say I'm somewhat of a sore loser." Then she swung her fan again, a gust of wind erupting from the metal. Naruto barely moved out the way of the attack before he spun back, being hit by another. It seemed like she was focusing towards him. Naruto hit the ground hard, but it wasn't enough to stop him. He got up, cuts now adorning his face. He winced. Gods, did that sting a lot. If she was focusing toward, maybe Naruto could get Temari away from the band of genin. They were already in a bad situation with 3 people who now seemed injured. "Shikamaru, Choji. Get the others to the center. I'll deal with her." Temari snorted. "Like we'll let that happen. Kankuro, deal with them. I got this brat. Me and him got a bone to pick." The puppeteer arrogantly remarked, "Light work," and started his own assault on the 2 standing members of Team Asuma. The puppet swung at Shikamaru first, who dodged, backed up and sent kunai towards the direction of the puppet, which served little more than a distraction anyway. "Naruto, don't be stupid. They want you to separate from us. Doing that lone wolf bullcrap isn't going to be good. Right now, both Ino and Sakura aren't exactly 100%, and the less that can be said about Sasuke, the better." Shikamaru growled out at the blonde who looked like he was still ready to go do something stupid. "That would just serve to get everyone here killed. Get some distance from us if you must, but don't go too far." "Alright, I got dash." Naruto didn't finish the sentence, too busy dodging a fierce gale. "Less talking, more fighting." Temari smirked, swinging her fan at Naruto freely. Now that the effect Naruto put on it had long ago dissipated, lifting and swinging the metal fan had been quite easy again. She found some sort of glee seeing the brat panic as blasts of wind shot at him. Naruto hated the situation, and knew this battle was much more in his opponent's favor than the battle in the tournament. He had no underground to run to, and he was finding a hard time getting any space to summon his clones. Temari seemed to be focused on him, and him only. He couldn't see what the rest of his peers were doing at all, and Naruto found himself on a building adjacent to the one they were on when they met the Suna shinobi. Naruto knew the only way he was getting any sort of advantage against Temari was to head to ground level, and the resource of earth techniques would be abundant. He could do what he did best, and hide underground to form a new plan. He got enough time to make a clone though, which proved to be just enough to get his strategy rolling. The clone bounced away from Temari, as the teenager sent a howling gale of wind his way again. Naruto idly wondered if the girl had a lot of chakra, much like how her brother, Gaara, seemed to have, as he completed the Kawarimi no Jutsu and switched his positions with his shadow clone. Instantly, the clone was dispelled by the wind, and Naruto received the memories as he found himself in the mid-air, jumping towards the alleyway. Not wasting any time, Naruto sunk into the ground, spawning clones before he did so. Temari had followed him down, shooting wind again from her fan. He could feel the winds whipping above his face, missing him by inches. He closed the hole, and started spreading his chakra in the soil, moving it along as he moved through it. His chakra was starting to feel like it was taking a hit all day. He had been using chakra non-stop without taking a breather. He, of course, couldn't gauge where the level of his chakra sat at, but he was starting to feel a little winded. Nevertheless, he summoned clones topside to serve as distractions to Temari and things to track the Suna Kunoichi's position. Much to his surprise, when memories were fed back to him, Temari made sure to move fast, never standing on the ground against his clones as she shot attack after attack at them. This has been her pattern: move back when the clones approached, cling to the walls of a nearby building, and then blast his clones with some nameless wind release technique, or one Naruto didn't quite care to know about at the time. She had been using all these wind attacks all day. That had to be a confirmation that she had quite a bit of chakra to spend, and she didn't look a bit winded. Nevertheless, Naruto was sure he had more chakra than she did, unless she was like him, a Jinchuriki. He wouldn't know how to see if she was one. In fact, if it was any indication, Gaara seemed like he was one of that massive spike of energy let off by him, and the flood of chakra that surrounded him when he transformed seemed to be a telling sign of being a demon vessel like him. Naruto didn't know, and all of this was just idle thinking. Back to focusing on Temari, idiot, Naruto chastised himself. The girl clung to the wall of the building once again with her chakra. The only way to get her onto his ground would be actually pulling her down. Naruto had no problem with that, plan in mind as he flared his chakra and let loose hundreds doppelgangers of himself, the ground above him erupting. Temari flinched and reared back her fan, looking ready to load up an attack again, but there were way too many Naruto clones covering her from almost every angle. Her own solution was to head up, which she did, speed up the building wall to the roof. And when she got enough space, she blasted them with an air technique again. Well, most of them. One Naruto remained in the mix, himself. It was time to try something new out on Temari. Manically grinning, Naruto tore through the tornado, feeling the sting of the wind chakra across his skin, but ultimately didn't care one bit. Temari was still in the process of using the technique, and then she saw him pretty much rush through a tornado. It was obvious she quickly became alarmed. One last thing about chakra flow that Ebisu sensei briefly went over that Naruto expanded on himself while reading up some stuff in the library. You could place chakra in almost anything, whether it be objects, other people, and even flow it in yourself. Naruto had already worked out the kinks on how to flow chakra through his limbs, his hands and feet being the easiest place to do it on his body, it being the thing he worked on when Days Ebisu refused to teach him, but the one thing he was working on currently was perfect distribution of earth chakra flowing through his body. The technique he was working on was, therefore, still incomplete, but he did get down on the basics. Earth really was the best defensive element to know, and as crazy and stupid it was to jump through a fucking gale of slicing wind, he did it. Few cuts on his skin was like a slap on the wrist. Well, he lied, it hurt like hell. As soon as he was near the face of Temari, who was frozen in shock, he reared back his earth chakra-laced fist before crunching her in the face with it. Like before, Temari went down with one solid hit, her head being rattled back. That was it, he won. Seeing the girl knocked unconscious, Naruto nodded to himself, and was about leave but stopped. And he sighed. God damn it. Call it a weakness for cute girls, or maybe it was because he plain disliked killing people, or leaving them to die. Naruto decided he would go do the right thing, in his own opinion, which would be turning this girl to the ANBU and have them take it from there. Tricky part would be finding a squad though. Maybe Shikamaru would be able to help him out. He really should be trying to get back to his group. After dropping Gaara off, his clone dispelled and fed Jiraiya information on the whereabouts of the Hokage. Jiraiya cut a path to the area where the sky-high barrier of purple flames stood ominously in the background. A hop later, and Gamabunta stopped near the barrier. ANBU all circled the area, a clump of the ninja were surrounding one portion of the barrier. Jiraiya took heed of the green-colored hooded cloaks, and knew these ANBU were a part of a Fuinjutsu squad. The Seal Master went over to talk to the people, simultaneously dismissing his giant toad partner who disappeared in a giant cloud of smoke. This did not go unheard of. Some, who were inspecting the barrier standing up, gave him a quick salute, while he nodded wordlessly, and turned his head towards the purple barrier. The Shishiinjin, a nearly impenetrable barrier ninjutsu/Fuinjutsu technique that required 4 people to hold up the barrier. He saw one of Orochimaru's subjects at work, holding the barrier up. They themselves were protected from outside interference. An explosion rocked the roof, and battle was still fierce in the purple barrier. Elemental techniques had arose from both sides, thrown by Orochimaru and the Hokage inside. They had been going at it for a while before he arrived here. It was time to get inside and help his former teacher out. And then he felt it. A surge of chakra inside the barrier, too powerful to ignore. Even someone with meager sensing abilities like him, he could feel it. It must have been twice as bad for the censors of the ANBU, some who even lost their composed to gasp in awe and fear. 2 Kage-level beings were summoned inside the barrier, Jiraiya-sama. One ANBU yelled out. Jiraiya had a feeling that was not good. Alright, we got to hurry quick. I have a feeling those beings inside aren't here to aid our Hokage. And he had a seal to take care of it. The thing about the Shishiinjin was they had to be held up by the 4 shinobi inside. It required all 4 to hold up the barrier, meaning if one of them were felled, it would create a hole in the barrier. Which would make it a hole the forces of Konohagakure could get through. Orochimaru had figured Jiraiya would be too busy with the summons to do anything, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. That or he thought he would be able to kill the Sandaime right off the back like that. Sarutobi-sensei may have not been the same ninja he was when he was younger, but the current Hokage was still one of the most powerful shinobi on this entire continent. Orochimaru hadn't really changed since Jiraiya last seen him, an arrogant bastard that was too assured by his power. Besides all of that, the Shishiinjin was one of the many barrier ninjutsu Sarutobi-sensei showed them growing up. Such an old-school technique, Orochimaru, Jiraiya chided in his head. The weakness of the barrier was not inside, but rather, outside. The people who were holding up the barrier itself were the weakness to get rid of them, and this was no problem. However, Jiraiya had an even better solution, which was to keep a perpetual hole inside the barrier. Pulling out a paper seal from his pocket, he activated it with his chakra, with red glowing kanji on it reading, seal. Then, he raised it towards the barrier's direction, and watched the purple flames of the barrier started to be sucked up into the seal. The barrier itself would hold based on how much chakra the users had, and unless they purposely wanted to constantly feed a barrier chakra that was ultimately letting people instill, it would be a waste of time and chakra. In the end, the barrier would come down thanks to the work of the Fukahoin. And the enemy realized it was a foolish endeavor to keep the barrier going because before Jiraiya's fire-canceling seal could finish its work, they dropped the technique, and all 4 of Orochimaru's guards went to fight the ANBU. Jiraiya allowed his fellow countrymen to handle the guards, while he made a beeline to Orochimaru, who seemed alarmed that his grand plan was coming undone. He inspected the battleground and seen something extremely alarming. Large roots that looked like it belonged to a giant tree and water was on the ground. Before Jiraiya could think what that meant, he narrowly dodged a blow from one source of the issue. Jiraiya could have never imagined even meeting the legendary god of shinobi, Hashirama Senju, let alone fighting the man in battle. Now, this seemed to the case. The very dead Shodai Hokage was very much alive at this point, or maybe, not so. In fact, he looked just like he was the very day he died in battle, still very much young looking, despite the cracks adorning his face, and in the same iconic red armor he died in. The odd thing about it was just that. It looked like he hadn't aged a day since he died. Jiraiya got another shocker when he met the Nidaime Hokage's fist, aimed to his temple. Tobirama Senju was another dead Hokage before his time, his blue armor and white shaggy hair flowing through the air as he jetted past Jiraiya and kicked the Sannin in his back hard. His face too was wearing a lot of lines that looked like cracks, his skin was almost gray, and his eyes looked cold and dead. That was just great, wasn't it? 2 dead Hokage now back to life, because there was no way Orochimaru had them in his service for this long, truly alive. What laws of physics and nature did Orochimaru break to get these 2 people to come back to live to serve him? Now he could see why Sarutobi-sensei was having an issue defeating Orochimaru in combat for an hour, when Jiraiya was sure it wouldn't take him that long. If he had to deal with Orochimaru, and then the 2 Senju brothers, Jiraiya surely would have many issues too, and Sarutobi-sensei was one of the best. The old coot could still teach the Gamma Sannin a few things or two. Well, today was going to be something interesting indeed. First, he had to get these 2 off of him, which was proving to be difficult. As he was thinking all the insults he could call Orochimaru in the book for what he did, Hashirama again attempted to engage him in taijutsu. Jiraiya narrowly dodged the god of shinobi, knowing from his history that one did not want to engage the Shodai Hokage in close quarters. Tobirama then followed, but Jiraiya managed to get a leg up and kick the white-haired Hokage where the solar plexus would be located at. Taijutsu was a skill that may not been his forte, unlike a certain green-wearing shinobi he knew, but no one wanted to go up against it. He was no Tsunade, but he was able to crack stone with his feet alone. The Hokage didn't so much make a grunt however, and after he fell almost boneless to the ground, he picked himself up, and came again. Meanwhile, Jiraiya narrowly dodged a spire of stone that appeared at his feet, and summoned chakra to his throat, oil filling his mouth. Then, he spat it out, before howling out fire from his mouth to create a large blaze of fire aimed towards the Shodai. It hit the Hokage head-on, before his form collapsed into burning wood. Clone made out of wood. He should have expected that. He really should have expected that. For his mistake, wood started wrapping around his figure, squeezing his arms together to his body. Jiraiya allowed the flow of fire to surround him, but was surprised to see that fire could not burn the wood. He didn't wonder why it didn't, just knowing staying in the bindings meant certain death. He had to think quick when the Shodai Hokage came forth with a wooden sword made out of his hand. Infusing chakra into his feet, and then stretching it out to infuse with the Senju's shadow, Jiraiya's form became just as weightless, and he disappeared into the Hokage's shadow. The work of the Gamadara, Kageatsuri no Jutsu was really great on surprising enemies or escaping binding techniques like what the Shodai Hokage had previously done to him. Jiraiya held his breath, and moved closer to the man, before releasing the technique. The guy didn't know what hit him when Jiraiya then immediately charged up a Rasengan, and hit him face first with it. Jiraiya then got in a water release technique fly his way, the technique looking fairly dangerous and lethal should it hit him head-on. A quick performance of the Kawirimi no Jutsu, and a piece of wood was in the same space Jiraiya once occupied, getting devoured by the water. The Shodai Hokage may have not been a problem anymore, but Jiraiya was left to deal with the stone-faced, dead Naidame Hokage. Without forming even one hand seal, behind the Hokage 2 dragons came. To live, shaped out of pure water chakra. No water source whatever anywhere, except, perhaps the air, himself, and the Toad Sage was reminded why Tobirama was perhaps one of the most scariest water release user in history. Jiraiya buckled down, and slammed his palms into the ground, and fed the ground his chakra. A dome of pure rock was created, barely holding up to the water dragons slamming against it. It shook, and Jiraiya shook with it. All of this took some bit out of him. Switching between elements were rough on the Tenketsu, throwing ninjutsu here and there, and then making earth out of his own chakra thanks to no viable source on the terrain he was fighting on. The roof itself was made of wood, which would probably work more to Hashirama's favor, was not easy. Jiraiya cut the link between the roof and his chakra, and moved away. The Naidame was still hot on his tail, sending a barrage of water techniques. One managed to knock into Jiraiya's shoulder, which made the 51-year-old man spin, and throw him to the ground. Tobirama went in for the finishing blow, approaching with a kunai ready to stab Jiraiya, but it was a mistake as Jiraiya created a stone spear, and it flew into the eyeball of the Naidame. Much to the credit to Tobirama, he didn't yell or scream in pain, not that Jiraiya cared enough to make a big deal about. Doing a sequence of hand seals, Jiraiya quickly followed up spitting oil onto the Hokage, and burning him into cinders with a Katan, Enden. The fireball connected, and Tobirama was blown back away from Jiraiya. The Shodai came back, but Jiraiya was ready for him, and before he could do anything, Jiraiya summoned wind into his hand, and a tearing gale of wind sliced into the neck of the remaining Hokage, lobbing off the neck. The Sannin sighed in some relief, glad the battle was over. Soon, things would be finished here. He turned away and went to help the Sandaime battle Orochimaru, approaching their side of the field. The two seemed engaged in a battle of weapons. Orochimaru was swinging around the blade of Kusanagi, a legendary sword granted to him a long time ago, and Sarutobi was swinging back with a massive staff. Sarutobi-sensei's Kangonioi, if he wasn't mistaken. That meant the monkey summon, Enma, was around helping him. Good. At least Sarutobi wasn't all alone then. Jiraiya decided it was time to enter the fray to assist his teacher, landing a kick onto the backside of the snake who was attacking him. Orochimaru roared, being launched back by the sucker punch, well, kick. Jiraiya. Sarutobi breathed out, looking exhausted and drained. I'm here, sensei. Let's go kick our old Orochi's ass, shall we? What did you do to Hashirama-sama and Tobirama-sama? His teacher was all business, and not in a joking manner. Jiraiya grinned nonetheless, trying to be reassuring. Took them out, of course. Wasn't too hard, really. They are probably dead, well, again. Sarutobi only turned more alarmed. They do not die, tire, or stay down for long, Jiraiya. They will get back up. I already had used some of my strongest techniques against them, and after a few minutes, they regenerated their wounds completely and was back in fighting condition. I suspect the very reason why they are still going is because of Orochimaru's control over them. Damn him for his perversion of Naidame-sama's technique. And such a divine technique the Naidame created, sensei. Such a divine one. Orochimaru remarked, smirking as he picked himself and stood tall with his sword. Sarutobi growled, and turned to face the pale-skinned man, already prepared to fight again. Meanwhile, Jiraiya had a different reaction. Ah, seems like Orochi has gotten back up from the little love tap I gave him to his back. Jiraiya smirked at the source of the voice. You okay there? Said man glared at the toad sage in annoyance, the Kusanagi blade no longer in his hands. Jiraiya, my old friend. So, you are the reason my guards couldn't hold up the barrier. Yes, it is I. The Great One. The Magnificent One. Jiraiya bellowed, starting to pose flippantly. I am here to shine down light in this battle, and save the village from your evil ways, Orochimaru. Still ever the buffoon, I see. It's amazing how little you have changed since we last met. Jiraiya had immediately thought up a counter. Buffoon, you say? Yet, you taught your guards a technique you and Tsunadeheim figured out a way to counter since we seen the move being used by an enemy squad in the Second Shinobi World War. How foolish of you. Orochimaru chuckled. Oh? You still remember? Ah, of course. After all, we did develop the seal that absorbs fire release ninjutsu together, did we not? Perhaps I was a little silly choosing such a technique for them to use. Well, it's not your fault your guards suck. Oh wait, it kind of is, isn't it? Now the ANBU are dealing with them, while I beat the crap out of you for summoning back the previous two Hokage, Orochi. The demented snake sage snickered. Oh? Did you like what I did? I have gained the power to control both life and death. I have reanimated them for the sole purpose of playing with our sensei here. Unfortunately, you had to come and ruin all the fun. Oh Jiraiya, you party pooper. Oh, I'm so sorry. You come back home after so long of being gone, and you think you're going to have a blast here without seeing me? Come on now, Orochi. We got to catch up and all. Oh, and by the way, you thought you can distract me with some mere shit middle-tier snake summons in the village? You got to stop underestimating me. Orochimaru shrugged. Perhaps. Well, this banter was fun for a little bit, but I think I will resume killing our former teacher. Yes, I think that will be a splendid idea. Meanwhile, you can deal with the Hokage again. On cue, a blast of water was sent his way, and if it was not for the warning Sarutobi-sensei gave him and him feeling something wasn't quite right, Jiraiya probably would have been washed right off this roof by the Naidame's nameless water release technique. Jiraiya simply moved away, and pivoted towards the other Sannin with a Rasengan charged in hand, but Orochimaru slipped away, going towards the Hokage who prepared himself for another battle with his former wayward student. Jiraiya found the other Hokage hot on his heels, as he dodged water and wood alike. Blasts of water after water came from the Naidame, while the Shodai kept stomping on the ground, creating pillars of wood coming up under the white-haired Sannin. So the Sandaime wasn't kidding, huh? Orochimaru essentially had brought back two Kage-level shinobi that had no sort of limit. Dealing with Gaara, summoning two toads, one being the boss of the toads, and the other a very high-tier summon, some other various techniques, and now this battle was starting to dent his chakra reserves, but he wasn't one of the legendary three ninjas for nothing. Still though, if Orochimaru had been able to summon undead versions of the first two Hokage with quick regeneration abilities, and lots of chakra to spare, things would get bad quick if they didn't finish the two off. Perhaps if Sarutobi and or Jiraiya killed off Orochimaru like how real summons acted with their summoners so the two Hokage would go away? It was a good idea, but Jiraiya was still stuck in battle against them for now. Meanwhile, the Sandaime was, no doubt, fighting Orochimaru. This was hardly fair, a 3 against 2. Where was other backup when you needed it? Right now, it seemed like Jiraiya couldn't get a solid, sticking hit on the two Hokage. The Sage of Toads then felt his vision shake and shake until he could not see anymore. There was nothing but darkness. His senses were out of whack for a second, until he recognized the effects of what was happened. Genjutsu. And there was only one technique both of the Hokage were famous for wielding that created the sensation of someone suddenly going blind. Shit, he read this technique up too. It was a genjutsu called the Kokwanjio no Jutsu. What an apt name for a technique. Of the world became nothing but darkness, and had him been a lesser shinobi, he would have panicked. However, Jiraiya was not, and instead of relying on his eyes, he relied on his ears, nose, and more importantly, his chakra. The smell of dirt and decay filled his nose, and he barely dodged an attack whizzing past his face. He couldn't dodge a blast of water, however, and his senses still were not reset back to normal. The genjutsu was still in full effect. Fortunately, however, he was caught by a person, and feeling a surge of chakra run through him like a current, his vision returned. Sensei, I'm assuming that's you. It is. You're having a problem with Tobirama-sama and Hashirama-sama. I am. I don't know much of their abilities. Jiraiya admitted, feeling no shame for such. He might have a better chance if he was able to summon some extra outside help, but it would take time, and a fight like this wouldn't allow him the ample time to do so. I suppose it's time for us to switch opponents. Sarutobi did a strange combination of a wheeze and a grunt. Deal with Orochimaru then, if only for a short while. I am preparing a technique that can put the two of my old masters out of commission, and possibly kill Orochimaru. You look exhausted, almost as exhausted as I am, Sensei. What type of technique do you have in mind that won't kill you? It wasn't hard to see how low on fumes the Sandaime Hokage was running on. Hokage or not, no person's chakra was unlimited in no mortals, anyway. Death is nothing I am worried about, Jiraiya. I only care about winning. As for the technique I have in mind for our former countrymen, it will be something that will make sure Orochimaru will no longer be a threat. I admit, however, my reserves with my chakra are starting to get very low, Jiraiya. If you do not mind. Sarutobi trailed off, but Jiraiya knew what he wanted from him. The Toad Sage nodded, believing he had some chakra in his own tank to spare, and immediately sent a transmission of his own chakra to the body of the Hokage. The old man's body jolted a bit, but Sarutobi's, who was more slumped over, and trying his best to cover up his slowly hardening breathing, yes, Jiraiya noticed, stood more straighter and sent a barely noticeable nod to Jiraiya before going off to attack the two Hokage. Orochimaru came in, like on cue, to stop this, but Jiraiya intercepted his former teammate with a punch, to which did little to nothing to the Snake Man, who twisted his face and neck unnaturally in a strange motion to avoid it. Jiraiya didn't let that deter him, and continued his assault on the other man, which seemed to more and more becoming affected with distracting his former teammate. Orochimaru could not afford just ignoring the Konoha shinobi, and so turned his sights on him, which is what Jiraiya wanted. Sarutobi-sensei could fight the other two better than he could. Perhaps it wasn't as fair to leave the Hokage to them, but he stated he had a technique in mind that would take care of the Senju brothers and Orochimaru. He believed in his teacher. He just hoped whatever the old coot was doing wouldn't be any threat to himself. Jiraiya fired an earth release technique at Orochimaru, to which the snake dodged, of course, but something happened, and Jiraiya had gotten a strange feeling creep over him. Like death looming over them. Of course, any three of them could die at any moment, but something told him that literal death hung over the battle. The skies themselves started to darken, as if something big was going to happen. Orochimaru must have felt it too, because he paused, looking briefly confused. He stopped attacking, and looked towards the Hokage's battle. He smirked. Oh. It looks like Sarutobi-sensei has dealt with my toys. Jiraiya looked himself, and see no more sign of the two other Hokage who were here. Thank goodness to whatever Sarutobi-sensei had done to stop them. Looks like a lot of your plans have failed, Orochimaru. Oh, no. Not by the slightest. Our teacher must be running on low fumes now. I suppose it's time to stop playing here, and mosey over there to finish what I came for. Jiraiya wouldn't have it, rushing to the man with a Rasengan in hand, but Orochimaru had disgustingly enough turned his bottom half into what seemed to be the bottom of a snake, and sped off to Sarutobi. Orochimaru was still the fast one of the group of Sannin, it seemed. But Sarutobi seemed to be ready, and dodged the snake man's swipe before grabbing onto him by the shoulders. Jiraiya moved closer and saw Orochimaru's face completely frozen with shock and fear. The missing Nin growled. "What are you doing, sensei?" Sarutobi smirked weakly. "Winning this battle, Orochimaru, even if it kills me. Just like how I had done with my former teachers, you will be the same. I have learned I should have not allowed you to leave Konohagakure before with your life. I will now rectify my mistakes by taking you down with me. For the glory of Konohagakure." Orochimaru gasped, for once having that arrogance of his be replaced by real, stark fear. No, I feel my soul slipping away." Jiraiya looked alarmed at that. There was only one technique he could think of that could do such a thing. "Sensei, what are you doing? What kind of technique is this?" "A technique another Hokage before me has used, Jiraiya. I'm sorry, my boy, but I need to do this. For too long has I let my kind heart rule over me. The next Hokage after me, I hope, never makes the same mistakes I have. I leave Konohagakure to your hands, Jiraiya. Serve her well." Executing the Fuinjutsu, Shiki Fujin. What was his teacher saying to him? It was that technique? The very own that killed his own beloved student, Minato? No, it could not be. But, perhaps that's what he felt, the looming death that hung over them, darkening the skies around them. The kenjutsu that was the Shiki Fujin had been used before was being used again, and Jiraiya had studied the technique extensively ever since Minato had died. The seal was crafted by the former Uzumaki clan themselves, which invoked the Shinigami, and used the death god itself to kill their enemies. Such a terrifying thing was one of the reasons why the Uzumaki clan was destroyed, of course. To see this technique in action, even if he couldn't see the death god himself, was terrifying. Orochimaru was practically screaming, unable to move, but flapping his gums anyway. No. I can't die here. My dream hasn't been fulfilled yet. My hopes, my ambitions. You must stop this, sensei. You will kill your own self, you old fool. Those who summon the Shinigami will die. But Jiraiya heard nothing but a grunt of exhaustion from Sarutobi, who concentrated to continue his task on finishing Orochimaru. Orochimaru growled out one last thing, Kusanagi, summon. And Jiraiya watched as the sword Orochimaru once used traveled quickly to the backside of the current Hokage, but Jiraiya was already on it, sending the sword flying back with a Rasengan to throw it off course. The sword spun far away from them. No! Orochimaru howled in despair. Sarutobi nodded, not looking in Jiraiya's direction. I thank you, Jiraiya. It would have been harder completing this technique if the sword gotten to me. Enma, form a barrier around us. The staff became many with a technique similar to the Kage Bunshin, and then formed a lattice boxing in both Orochimaru and Sarutobi. To make the barrier even more protected, eyes popped out of the staves, and furry arms too. The hundred's arms made a cross guard to protect the barrier. It seemed like even in staff mode, Enma could produce several of his body parts out of the staff. Nothing could get through that thing now where Enma was a literal aegis protecting and observing anything that got near. Orochimaru had long gone become slackened with fear, and if it was possible, even more paler. Jiraiya approached, sadness in his eyes. Orochimaru was finished, for good now, but now, so was the Sandaime. Sarutobi-sensei. Jiraiya. The man croaked out, his voice almost lost. I have prepared a letter, in my quarters in the Hokage residence. Seek out Shikaku Nara. He shall know what to do next. Read the letter, Jiraiya, and follow whatever is on the letter's instructions. This is my last order to you. I will, sensei. Jiraiya was openly weeping, and he did not care. It has been an honor being your teacher, Jiraiya. You have made me proud, my boy. So proud. The same is to be said of Naruto. Like his father, I will regret not being able to see him grow in the man I know he will be. Like Konohagakure, take care of him, Jiraiya. You bet your ass, old man. I'll do it. I'll make him to the best spirits damn shinobi you would ever seen. I'll mold him in the best Hokage you would ever seen. I swear on it. Sarutobi smiled brightly at him and said one final word, good. Then, he and Orochimaru spinelessly dropped to the ground, no longer drawing any breath. Even as he died, Sarutobi-sensei did what he loved doing, smiling. Jiraiya smiled too, and crouched near him, closing his eyes. He did not do the same for Orochimaru. Even with the invasion's biggest player dead, there was still a battle waging on, and a village just lost the man who had been protecting it for years, even after being forced to pick the mantle again when his successor, the Yondaime Hokage, died so young. Never once had Sarutobi-sensei complained, never once had Sarutobi-sensei hated it. He loved his village, and served it well. The old man didn't have to do this alone, and Jiraiya was glad to have been here to help. Perhaps he should have felt something for Orochimaru to have died like that, a missing nin and a disgrace to his village, but he did not. For him, Orochimaru's death was like drawing in fresh air. Sarutobi-sensei had done what Jiraiya could never had done. The late Hokage hadn't been the only one who could not kill off his heart to do what he needed to do. How many times had he fought Orochimaru trying to get him back to the village, or he could have killed him instead? Too many to count until he gave up. Enough, no more thinking about it. A half of his genin team was now gone. Jiraiya was the only one who was still loyal to Konohagakure alive. He still had a village to serve. As he said before, there was still a battle waging on. He picked up the Hokage, and walked on. Enma, who released his technique as soon as the two inside the barrier died, had gestured him not to leave yet. The deed is done, but do not despair, young one. Hiruzen had lived and died as a true shinobi, and a fantastic Hokage. Yes. Perhaps you shall be the same. Enma said, cryptically. Had Jiraiya not have 1,000 other thoughts in his mind at the moment, he would have thought hard on that, but he just nodded at the boss summon of the monkeys. Enma walked away, and bent down to retrieve the Kusanagi blade, which was wedged into the rooftop, handle jutting out. Farewell, Jiraiya-kun. The Monkey King boomed from a distance over, and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. He too walked away with his teacher in his hand. The others will see soon. And like him, Konohagakure would weep.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.